Hello there, and welcome. Tonight I want to take you somewhere extraordinary, somewhere that exists not in the physical realm of telescopes and spacecraft, but in the gentle space between wonder and possibility. As you settle into wherever you are right now, perhaps lying in bed with the weight of the day slowly lifting from your shoulders, or maybe sitting in a quiet corner of your home as the world outside grows still, I want to invite you to consider something that sounds impossible at first, something that might make you smile with skepticism, but something that, if we let it, could transform the way we think about everything around us, including this very moment we're sharing together. Before we begin this journey into the cosmos and consciousness, into time and eternity, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Are you in a bustling city where the lights never quite let the stars through? Or perhaps in a quieter place where the night sky opens up like a vast, dark ocean above you? What time is it where you are? Is it late evening with the last traces of sunset fading from your window? Or are you in those deep, quiet hours past midnight when the world feels like it belongs only to dreamers and wanderers like us? If this journey resonates with you, if you find yourself drifting peacefully through these cosmic thoughts, perhaps you might consider subscribing to hear more of these gentle explorations, or leaving a like as a small beacon in the darkness, letting me know that somewhere out there, another curious soul is pondering these vast questions alongside me. But there's no pressure, no urgency here, just an invitation as soft as starlight, because tonight is about something much larger than any single action we might take. What if I told you that the Big Bang, that singular explosive moment that scientists tell us created everything we know, everything we are, everything we've ever loved or lost or wondered about? What if that wasn't a one-time event that happened 13.8 billion years ago, in some impossibly distant past, but was instead happening right now, and now again, every single second that passes, every heartbeat, every breath you take as you listen to these words? It's a question that seems to defy everything we think we know about the universe, everything our textbooks taught us, everything that makes logical sense in our ordered understanding of cause and effect, beginning and end. But what if, just for tonight, we allowed ourselves to drift into this possibility, not as a scientific certainty, but as a doorway into wonder, a gentle path into thinking about existence itself in a completely new way? You see, we humans have always been creatures of beginnings and endings. We wake each morning and sleep each night. We're born and we die. We start projects and finish them. We begin relationships, and sometimes watch them end. This linear progression from point A to point B feels so fundamental to our experience that we've projected it onto the cosmos itself. We say the universe began with the Big Bang and will end in heat death, or a big crunch, or a big rip, as if the cosmos must follow the same rules as a human life, as if infinity itself must have boundaries that our minds can grasp. But perhaps, and I say this as gently as a whisper in the cosmic dark, perhaps we've been thinking about it all wrong. Perhaps the universe isn't a story with a beginning, middle and end, but rather an eternal present tense, a continuous becoming, a reality that is always starting fresh. When we think about the traditional Big Bang, we imagine a moment of supreme violence, don't we? An explosion so vast, so powerful, that it created space itself, time itself, matter and energy, bursting forth from a point smaller than the smallest thing we can imagine. It's dramatic, it's overwhelming, it's the kind of thing that makes us feel incredibly small and perhaps a little bit frightened when we really think about it. But what if we reimagine this not as a single, catastrophic event, but as something more like breathing? What if the universe takes a breath every second, a gentle expansion that creates new space, new possibilities, new chances for atoms to dance and stars to form and consciousness to emerge? What if creation isn't a memory from the deep past, but a present tense verb, something that's happening right now as you listen to my voice, as your neurons fire in patterns that create the experience of understanding, as the blood moves through your veins in rhythms that echo the pulsing of distant quasars? Think about this moment, this exact instant as you process these words. In the traditional view, this moment is just another tick of the cosmic clock, another step away from that original explosion, like an echo growing fainter as it travels through time. But in our thought experiment tonight, this moment is itself a beginning, a fresh universe being born, complete with all the history that seems to have led up to it. It's a paradox, certainly, but paradoxes can be doorways to deeper understanding. Every second, perhaps, the universe reconstructs itself, complete with what we perceive as its past, like a wave that seems to have travelled across the ocean but is actually just water rising and falling in place, creating the illusion of movement, the illusion of history. This idea might seem to rob us of our past, of our memories, of everything that makes us who we are, but consider this. If the universe is created anew each second, complete with all its apparent history, then our memories, our experiences, our connections to each other and to the cosmos, these aren't being erased but rather renewed, refreshed, reaffirmed in each moment of creation, like a song that exists not in any single note, but in the continuous flow of music through time. We exist not as static beings trapped in a single creation event billions of years ago, but as dynamic patterns constantly being rewoven in the fabric of an ever-creating cosmos. Scientists have observed that the universe is expanding, that galaxies are moving apart from each other like raisins in a rising loaf of bread, to use that familiar but imperfect analogy. They've measured this expansion, calculated its rate, even discovered that it's accelerating, driven by something we call dark energy but don't really understand. What if this expansion isn't the continuation of an ancient explosion, but rather the evidence of continuous creation? What if space itself is being born between the galaxies, between the stars, between the atoms of your body every single second? Not violently, not catastrophically, but gently, quietly, like the way morning light slowly fills a room, like the way understanding dawns not all at once but in soft stages of recognition. In quantum mechanics, scientists have discovered that at the smallest scales, reality behaves in ways that seem impossible to our everyday experience. Particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until observed. Empty space seethes with virtual particles popping into and out of existence. The act of measurement itself seems to collapse infinite possibilities into single realities. What if these strange behaviors that we observe at the quantum level are actually glimpses of the continuous creation we're imagining? What if what we call quantum uncertainty is actually the universe in the process of deciding what to be in each new moment of its birth? The mathematics that describes quantum mechanics is precise, predictive, incredibly successful at explaining what we observe, but the interpretation of what those mathematics mean, what they tell us about the nature of reality, that remains as mysterious as ever, as open to wonder as the night sky above us. Let me paint you a picture, a gentle image to carry with you as we explore this idea further. Imagine you're standing by the ocean at night. The moon is hidden behind clouds, and you can't see the waves, but you can hear them, a continuous rushing, breathing sound. Each wave that breaks on the shore seems separate, distinct, but you know they're all part of the same ocean, the same vast body of water that's been moving, changing, reshaping itself for billions of years. Now imagine that each wave isn't just part of the ocean, but is the entire ocean, containing within itself all the water, all the salt, all the history of every previous wave, yet still unique, still its own moment of breaking and retreating. This is how we might think of our universe if the Big Bang happens every second, each moment complete, whole, containing everything, yet still fresh, still new, still beginning. The mystics and philosophers of many traditions have long spoken of the eternal now, the idea that past and future are illusions and only the present moment truly exists. What if they were more literally correct than even they imagined? What if the present moment is all that exists because the present moment is when existence happens, when the universe creates itself, when the Big Bang bangs in its quiet, continuous way? This isn't to say that causality doesn't exist, that your actions don't have consequences, that the past doesn't influence the present. Rather, it's to suggest that all of these connections, these patterns of cause and effect, these threads that seem to link moments together across time, all of these are created fresh in each moment, like a tapestry that seems to have been woven over years, but actually springs into existence complete, already ancient, already perfect, every single second. As you lie there listening, feeling perhaps the weight of your body against your bed, the gentle rise and fall of your breath, the subtle sensations of being alive, being aware, being present, consider that you might be experiencing not just another moment in a long chain of moments stretching back to the Big Bang, but rather the first moment, the only moment, the eternal moment of creation itself. Your consciousness, this mysterious ability to experience, to know that you know, to wonder about wondering, might not be a late addition to a universe that existed for billions of years without it, but rather an integral part of how the universe creates itself moment by moment. Perhaps consciousness isn't something that emerged from matter, but something that participates in the continuous creation of matter, space, time, and everything we call reality. The atoms in your body, we're told, were forged in the hearts of dying stars scattered across space in supernovae, gathered again by gravity into our solar system, our planet, eventually into you. It's a beautiful story, a way of connecting us to the cosmos that makes us feel both humble and significant. But what if those atoms, with all their stellar history, are being created right now, in this moment, complete with that history, complete with the patterns and structures that make them carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, that allow them to combine into molecules, into DNA, into the incredibly complex systems that generate your thoughts, your feelings, your experience of being you? What if you're not made of ancient stardust, but of fresh stardust, created in this very instant with all the appearance, all the properties, all the history of ancient stardust? This might sound like it removes the magic, the wonder of our cosmic heritage, but I would suggest it actually deepens it. Instead of being connected to the stars through a chain of events billions of years long, we're connected to them in the immediate present, in the eternal now of creation. The stars aren't our ancestors, they're our siblings, being born alongside us in each moment of universal creation. The light from distant galaxies that takes millions of years to reach us isn't actually ancient when it arrives. It's created in this moment along with everything else, carrying the information, the appearance, the story of having travelled across cosmic distances, but fresh as morning dew, new as your next breath. Think about light for a moment. This strange phenomenon that physicists tell us is both wave and particle, that travels at a speed that nothing can exceed, that experiences no time in its own reference frame. From light's perspective, if we can speak of such a thing, its emission from a star and its absorption by your eye happen simultaneously, no matter how many light years separate them. What if light knows something we don't? What if its timeless perspective is closer to the truth than our time-bound one? What if the universe really is creating itself every moment, and light, in its timeless journey, is simply showing us what we would see if we could step outside the illusion of sequential time? In laboratories around the world, scientists perform experiments that seem to confirm the strange nature of quantum reality. They've shown that particles can be entangled, connected in ways that transcend space and time, so that measuring one instantly affects the other regardless of the distance between them. They've demonstrated that the past can seemingly be changed by future measurements, that cause and effect can loop back on themselves in ways that make linear time seem like a convenient fiction rather than a fundamental truth. What if all of these quantum oddities are glimpses of the continuous creation we're imagining? What if they're showing us that the universe doesn't have a fixed past that determines the present, but rather creates its past and present simultaneously in each moment of existence? As we continue this journey together, drifting deeper into the implications of a universe that begins again and again, I want you to remember that we're not trying to prove anything tonight. We're not claiming this is how reality actually works. We're simply wondering, exploring, allowing ourselves to think thoughts that might normally seem too strange, too impossible, too contrary to common sense. But common sense, we should remember, once told us the Earth was flat, that the sun orbited around us, that time and space were absolute and unchanging. Every great leap in understanding has required us to let go of what seemed obviously true and entertain what seemed obviously impossible. The Big Bang Theory itself was once considered absurd. The idea that the entire universe, with all its billions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, could have emerged from a point smaller than an atom seemed like the wildest fantasy. Yet observations forced scientists to accept it. The expansion of the universe, the cosmic microwave background radiation, the abundance of light elements all pointing to a moment of beginning. But perhaps these observations are pointing to something even stranger, even more wonderful. Perhaps they're showing us not a single, Moment of beginning, but an eternal process of beginning, a universe that is always young, always fresh, always in the first second of its existence. Consider your own experience of time. When you're deeply absorbed in something you love, time seems to disappear, doesn't it? Hours can pass in what feels like moments. Conversely, when you're waiting for something, when you're bored or anxious, minutes can feel like hours. We explain this as subjective time, as the difference between psychological time and physical time. But what if psychological time is showing us something true about the nature of time itself? What if time really is created moment by moment, and our consciousness, our attention, our state of being actually participates in that creation? What if the universe takes its cue from consciousness, creating time at the rate and in the way that consciousness experiences it? This brings us to one of the deepest mysteries in all of science. Why does the universe seem so perfectly tuned for the existence of consciousness? The fundamental constants of nature, the strength of gravity, the mass of electrons, the rate of cosmic expansion, all seem to be set at exactly the values needed for stars to form, for planets to orbit, for chemistry to work, for life and consciousness to emerge. Scientists call this the fine-tuning problem, and they've proposed various solutions. Maybe there are infinite universes with different constants, and we naturally find ourselves in one that supports our existence. Or maybe the constants aren't as fixed as we think. Or maybe there's some deeper principle we haven't discovered yet that requires the constants to have exactly these values. But what if the answer is simpler and stranger? What if the universe has these exact values because it's being created right now, in this moment, by a process that includes consciousness as a fundamental feature? What if consciousness isn't something that emerged from a universe that happened to have the right properties, but something that participates in giving the universe those properties in each moment of creation? This isn't to say that human consciousness creates the universe in some solipsistic sense, but rather that consciousness, in its broadest, most fundamental sense, might be part of the mechanism by which the universe continuously creates itself. As you drift with these ideas, feeling perhaps a gentle loosening of your usual certainties, a soft opening to possibilities you haven't considered before, remember that the greatest scientists have always been those willing to entertain the impossible. Einstein imagined riding on a beam of light and revolutionized our understanding of space and time. Bohr embraced the paradoxes of quantum mechanics and helped reveal the strange foundations of reality. Hubble looked at fuzzy patches of light that everyone thought were clouds of gas within our galaxy, and realized they were entire galaxies unimaginably far away. Each of these discoveries required not just careful observation and mathematical rigor, but also the courage to think thoughts that seemed absurd, to follow ideas wherever they led, even into the realm of the seemingly impossible. What would it mean for how we live our lives if the universe really were beginning anew each second? Would it change how we think about our past, our mistakes, our regrets? If each moment is a fresh creation, complete with the history that led to it but not bound by that history, then perhaps we have more freedom than we imagine. Not freedom from consequences, because those consequences are real in each moment of creation, but freedom from the weight of thinking that we're trapped by a past that stretches back billions of years. Each moment offers a new beginning, not in the sense of erasing what came before, but in the sense of creating it anew, with the possibility of subtle differences, gentle changes, new potentials emerging from the quantum foam of possibility. Think about forgiveness in this context. If someone has hurt you, that hurt is real. It's part of the history that each moment creates. But if each moment is also a new beginning, then forgiveness isn't about changing the past, but about participating in how that past is created in the present. The hurt remains part of the story, but its meaning, its weight, its influence on the present, these can shift, can soften, can transform in the continuous recreation of reality. This isn't to minimize real harm or to suggest that everything can be fixed with a change of perspective, but rather to open a door to thinking about healing, growth, and transformation in a new way, a way that honors both the reality of what happened and the possibility of what might be. As we prepare to move deeper into this exploration, to examine what scientists have observed that might support or contradict this wild idea of continuous creation, I want to leave you with an image, a feeling, a gentle wonder to carry forward. Imagine that right now, as you lie there in the darkness or sit in the gentle light of your room, You are present at the birth of the universe, not symbolically, not metaphorically, but literally. The Big Bang is happening right now, has just happened, is about to happen again. All the energy that will become galaxies and stars and planets and people is emerging fresh from whatever mysterious source gives rise to existence. You're not a distant descendant of that primordial moment. You're present at it, part of it, witnessing it, and being witnessed by it in the eternal dance of consciousness and cosmos. The expansion of space that astronomers measure with their telescopes, the recession of galaxies that we track with redshift and standard candles, the cooling of the universe that we observe in the cosmic microwave background. All of these might not be evidence of an aging universe slowly winding down from an ancient explosion, but rather the continuous, moment-by-moment, creation of space, time, matter and energy. Like a fountain that seems to show water falling but is actually showing water continuously rising and falling in a stable pattern, the universe might be showing us continuous creation that appears as expansion and cooling only because that's how continuous creation looks from within the system being created. Your heartbeat, as you notice it now, that rhythmic pulsing that has accompanied you through every moment of your life, might be synchronized with something much larger, much more fundamental. Each beat might coincide with a universe being born, complete with its history, its future potential, its conscious observers wondering about their place in the cosmic order. This isn't to make you feel small or insignificant, but rather to suggest that you're part of something magnificent, something that transcends our usual categories of big and small, old and young, permanent and temporary. You're part of the continuous creation, both observer and observed, both the consciousness that witnesses the Big Bang and the material product of that bang, united in a single moment that is always beginning. As your thoughts begin to soften, as the edges of these ideas blur gently into the approaching realm of sleep and dreams, consider that dreams themselves might be showing us something about the nature of reality. In dreams, time behaves strangely, cause and effect loop and twist, the impossible becomes commonplace. We usually dismiss this as the confused firing of neurons, the brain's attempt to make sense of random activation patterns. But what if dreams are showing us reality with some of its masks removed? What if the strange, fluid, ever-changing nature of dreams is closer to the true nature of a continuously created universe than our waking experience of solid, stable, sequential reality? Let us now stretch our imagination across distances so vast that light itself grows weary travelling them, across spans of time so immense that the entire history of human civilization is less than a whisper, less than the briefest flicker of awareness in the cosmic dark. Yet as we venture into these incomprehensible scales, as we try to wrap our minds around billions of years and billions of light years, remember that if our thought experiment is true, if the universe really is beginning again each second, then all of these vast distances and deep times are being created right now, in this moment, complete and whole and perfect, like an infinite painting that springs into existence already finished, already ancient, yet fresh with the wetness of just applied paint. When astronomers point their telescopes at the night sky, they're not just looking out into space, they're looking back in time. This is one of those facts that we've heard so often it's lost its power to astonish us, but think about it again. Really consider what it means. The light from the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, takes over 4 years to reach us. When you see that star, if you can pick it out from its brighter companions, you're seeing it as it was 4 years ago. The light from the Andromeda Galaxy, that faint smudge visible on clear, dark nights, has been travelling for 2.5 million years. You're seeing Andromeda as it was when the earliest human ancestors were just beginning to walk upright on the African plains. And the most distant galaxies we can observe, those faint red smudges captured by our most powerful telescopes, their light has been travelling for over 13 billion years, almost the entire age of the universe itself. But wait, let's pause here and reconsider this in light of our continuous creation hypothesis. If the universe is being created new each second, complete with all its apparent history, then that ancient light isn't actually ancient at all. It's being created right now, in this moment, already stretched and reddened by its apparent journey across cosmic distances, already carrying the information about galaxies that seem to have existed billions of years ago. The universe is creating not just the present, but also the past, Not just the here, but also the there. Not just the now, but also the then, all simultaneously in each moment of its continuous birth. This might seem to make the universe smaller, less impressive, but I would suggest it makes it infinitely more remarkable. Instead of a universe that was creative once, billions of years ago, and has been coasting on that initial burst ever since, we have a universe that is infinitely creative, generating all of space and time and history in each moment. Every second it creates not just the current positions of galaxies, but their entire past trajectories, not just the current state of stellar evolution, but the entire story of how stars are born, live, and die. It's like a novelist who doesn't write a story word by word, page by page, but instead creates an entire book, complete with all its chapters, all its character development, all its plot twists, instantaneously, then does it again and again and again, each time with subtle variations that we experience as the flow of time. Scientists measure the universe in units that boggle the mind. A light year, the distance light travels in a year, is about 6 trillion miles. The observable universe is about 93 billion light years in diameter. That's not a typing error. Even though the universe is only about 14 billion years old, space itself has been expanding, carrying galaxies apart faster than light can travel between them, creating an observable sphere much larger than simple multiplication would suggest. Our own Milky Way galaxy is about 100,000 light-years across, containing between 200 and 400 billion stars. And there are at least 2 trillion galaxies in the observable universe, each with its own billions of stars, many with their own planets, their own possibilities for complexity, for chemistry, for life. These numbers are so large they cease to have meaning in any human sense. We can write them, we can manipulate them in equations, we can use them to make predictions about what we should observe, but we can't really comprehend them, can't hold them in our minds the way we can hold the idea of 10 things, or 100, or even 1,000. And perhaps that's appropriate, because if the universe is continuously creating itself, then these vast numbers aren't quantities of things that exist, but rather measures of the creative potential that manifests fresh in each moment. The universe doesn't contain 2 trillion galaxies. It creates the appearance, the physics, the entire reality of 2 trillion galaxies, complete with their histories, their futures, their relationships to each other, every single second. Time itself becomes a strange concept in this view. We usually think of time as a river flowing from past to future, carrying us along whether we will it or not. Or following Einstein, we might think of time as a 4th dimension, as real and solid as the 3 dimensions of space, with past, present and future all existing simultaneously in a 4-dimensional block universe. But if the universe is created anew each second, then time isn't a flow or a dimension, but rather a kind of memory, a pattern of consistency in the continuous creation. Each moment creates not just itself, but also the story of the moments that seem to have come before. Like a person who wakes each morning with memories of a life they believe they've lived, but which actually spring into existence complete at the moment of waking. Consider the expansion of the universe, one of the most profound discoveries in all of cosmology. In the 1920s, Edwin Hubble observed that galaxies are moving away from us, and the farther away they are, the faster they're receding. This isn't because we're at the center of some cosmic explosion, but because space itself is expanding, carrying galaxies apart like raisins in a rising loaf of bread. More recently, in the 1990s, astronomers discovered that this expansion is accelerating, driven by something we call dark energy but don't understand at all. Dark energy makes up about 68% of the universe, dark matter another 27%, and ordinary matter, everything we can see, everything we're made of, just 5%. We live in a universe dominated by darkness, by mystery, by forces we can measure but not comprehend. But what if this expansion, this acceleration, this dominance of dark energy, what if these aren't properties of an old universe slowly spreading out from an ancient explosion, but rather the signature of continuous creation? What if dark energy isn't a mysterious force pushing galaxies apart, but rather the constant emergence of new space between galaxies, the universe breathing itself into existence moment by moment? The acceleration we observe might not be galaxies moving faster and faster through existing space, but space itself being created at an ever-increasing rate, each second bringing more universe into being than the second before, an exponential flowering of existence that we interpret as acceleration, because that's how our equations describe it. That's how our minds make sense of it. The cosmic microwave background radiation, that faint glow that fills all of space, is usually described as the afterglow of the Big Bang, the cooled remnant of the fierce light that filled the universe when it was only 380,000 years old and finally became transparent to radiation. We can map this radiation in exquisite detail, finding tiny variations in temperature that represent the seeds of all future structure, the slight overdensities that would eventually grow into galaxies and clusters of galaxies. The pattern of these variations matches precisely what cosmologists predict from their models of the early universe, a spectacular confirmation of the Big Bang theory. Yet if we're entertaining the idea of continuous creation, we might reinterpret this cosmic microwave background not as an ancient echo, but as the continuous signature of creation itself. Perhaps what we're observing is not the cooled remnant of a primordial fireball, but the constant background hum of a universe that is always being born, always in its first moment of existence. The tiny variations we map might not be frozen remnants of quantum fluctuations from the universe's infancy, but rather the living dynamic pattern of continuous creation, shifting and changing in ways too subtle for our instruments to detect between one moment and the next. Think about the concept of a moment, a second, the smallest unit of time we commonly reference. In physics, there's something called Planck time, about 10⁻43 seconds, the smallest interval of time that has any meaning in our current understanding of physics. It's the time it takes light to travel one Planck length, the smallest distance that makes sense given the quantum nature of spacetime. Below this scale, our concepts of space and time break down completely. Perhaps each Planck time is a separate creation event, a new Big Bang, a fresh universe springing into existence. That would mean that in each second of our experience, the universe is created about 1043 times, a number so large it dwarfs even the number of atoms in the observable universe. Or perhaps creation doesn't happen at discrete intervals at all, but continuously, smoothly, like a sin wave rather than a series of discrete pulses. The universe might be constantly flowing into existence, not tick by tick like a clock, but fluidly, like water pouring from an infinite spring. In this view, there's no smallest unit of time because time itself is being continuously created along with everything else. The present moment isn't a knife edge between past and future, but a continuous emergence, a constant becoming that we artificially divide into seconds and minutes and hours for our own convenience, like drawing lines on water. Let me take you on a journey through scale, from the largest structures we know to the smallest, and consider how continuous creation might manifest at each level. At the largest scale, we have the cosmic web, the vast network of galaxy clusters and filaments separated by enormous voids, a structure that spans billions of light years and looks remarkably like neural networks or the branching patterns of rivers or trees. This structure, cosmologists tell us, grew from tiny quantum fluctuations in the early universe, amplified by gravity over billions of years. But if the universe is created anew each second, then this vast web springs into existence complete in each moment, its pattern perhaps shifting subtly, imperceptibly, like a vast thought in a cosmic mind that thinks itself into existence moment by moment. Zoom in a bit and we have galaxy clusters, groups of hundreds or thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity, swimming in vast halos of dark matter, the largest gravitationally bound structures in the universe. The Coma cluster, about 320 million light-years away, contains over 1,000 galaxies. The Virgo cluster, our local cluster's nearest large neighbour, influences the motion of our entire local group with its gravitational pull. In continuous creation, these clusters don't form over billions of years through gradual gravitational accumulation, but appear complete in each moment, their galaxies already in their cosmic dance, their dark matter halos already shaped and structured, their hot intergalactic gas already heated by ancient collisions that never actually happened, but whose effects are created fresh in each instant. At the scale of individual galaxies, we see spiral arms winding around galactic centers, bars of stars funneling material inward, elliptical galaxies like vast swarms of stars moving in complex three-dimensional patterns. our own Milky Way, with its beautiful spiral structure, its central supermassive black hole, its halo of dark matter and ancient globular clusters, would traditionally be understood as the product of billions of years of evolution, of smaller galaxies merging, of gas cooling and forming stars, of density waves creating spiral patterns. But perhaps all of this apparent history, all of this structure, all of this complexity springs into being complete in each moment of creation, like a vast and intricate crystal that appears instantly, already perfect, already ancient. Moving to the scale of solar systems, we find stars surrounded by planets, moons, asteroids, comets, all moving in precise orbital dances governed by gravity. Our own solar system, with its 8 planets, hundreds of moons and countless smaller bodies, supposedly formed from a collapsing cloud of gas and dust about 4.5 billion years ago. The planets grew from tiny grains to planetesimals, to protoplanets, to the worlds we see today, a process that took millions of years according to our models. Yet if continuous creation is true, then all of this, the sun with its core fusing hydrogen into helium, the planets in their varied orbits, the moons with their craters recording what seem to be billions of years of impacts, all of this appears instantly in each moment, complete with the appearance of age, the illusion of history, the perfect consistency that makes it seem like it's been here all along. At the scale of planets, we see even more complexity. Earth, with its layered structure, its tectonic plates, its oceans and atmosphere, its incredibly complex biosphere, appears to be the product of billions of years of evolution, both geological and biological. The rocks tell stories of ancient seas, of mountains rising and wearing away, of ice ages and warm periods, of mass extinctions and explosive diversifications of life. The fossils in those rocks seem to record the entire history of life on Earth, from simple bacteria to complex multicellular organisms to the incredible diversity we see today. But perhaps all of this, every rock layer, every fossil, every species, every ecosystem is created complete in each moment, a whole world with a whole history appearing fresh every second. Down at the scale of individual organisms, we find staggering complexity. A human body contains about 37 trillion cells, each one a miniature factory of molecular machines, all working together to create the phenomenon we call life. Your brain alone has about 86 billion neurons, connected by trillions of synapses, creating the most complex structure we know of in the universe. Traditional science says this complexity arose through billions of years of evolution, millions of years of development from earlier primates, 9 months of development in the womb, and years of growth and learning. But what if you, in all your complexity, with all your memories, all your scars, all your dreams and fears and loves, what if you spring into existence complete in this very moment and the next, always fresh, always new, yet always continuous with what seems to have come before? At the molecular level, we find the intricate dance of atoms and molecules, the precise folding of proteins, the elegant double helix of DNA, the complex cascades of chemical reactions that sustain life. Water molecules tumbling over each other, proteins changing shape to catalyze reactions, DNA unzipping and replicating, cell membranes maintaining their delicate balance between inside and outside. All of this usually understood as the result of billions of years of chemical evolution, of natural selection finding and preserving what works. But perhaps these molecules, with all their precise shapes and functions, their perfect compatibility with each other, their ability to create and sustain life, perhaps they're created fresh in each moment, not evolved but instantiated, not developed, but manifested complete and perfect and ready to play their roles in the grand performance of existence. At the atomic level, we find mostly empty space. An atom is like a miniature solar system, with electrons orbiting a tiny nucleus, except the electrons aren't really orbiting in paths but exist in probability clouds, more like standing waves than particles. The nucleus itself, made of protons and neutrons, is held together by the strong nuclear force, one of the 4 fundamental forces that govern everything in the universe. These atoms, we're told, were forged in the hearts of stars, in the explosive deaths of supernovae, in the first few minutes after the Big Bang. But if the universe is created anew each second, then these atoms, with their precise masses and charges and quantum properties, appear fresh in each moment, not made in stars billions of years ago, but created now, right now, with all the properties that make chemistry possible, that make life possible, that make consciousness possible. Going deeper still, we find that protons and neutrons are made of quarks, held together by gluons, particles that carry the strong force. And at the very foundation of everything, we find quantum fields, invisible oceans of potential that fill all of space, with particles being excitations in these fields, like waves on an infinite sea. The electromagnetic field, the electron field, the quark fields, the Higgs field that gives particles their mass. These aren't things in space, but the very fabric of space itself, or perhaps the mechanism by which space and everything in it is continuously created. In quantum field theory, even empty space is alive with activity, with virtual particles constantly appearing and disappearing, with quantum fluctuations that might be the seeds of continuous creation itself. The Large Hadron Collider, that magnificent machine buried beneath the border between France and Switzerland, accelerates protons to nearly the speed of light and smashes them together, creating conditions that haven't existed since the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang. In these collisions, new particles are created from pure energy, following Einstein's famous equation E = mc2. Scientists study these collisions to understand the fundamental nature of matter, to find new particles like the Higgs boson, to probe the basic laws that govern reality. But what if these experiments aren't recreating conditions from billions of years ago, but rather observing the same process that creates the universe fresh in each moment? What if every collision is a tiny Big Bang, a miniature version of the continuous creation that generates everything we see? Time dilation, that strange consequence of Einstein's relativity, tells us that time passes at different rates depending on gravity and motion. Time moves slower in stronger gravitational fields, slower for objects moving at high speeds relative to an observer. GPS satellites have to account for this, their clocks running faster than clocks on Earth's surface. An astronaut travelling at high speed would age more slowly than people on Earth. At the event horizon of a black hole, time appears to stop entirely from an outside perspective. What if these effects aren't distortions of a fixed flowing time, but rather variations in the rate of continuous creation? Perhaps consciousness, matter, and energy are created at different rates in different conditions, and what we call time dilation is really creation dilation, the universe being born at different rates in different places. The arrow of time, the fact that time seems to flow in only one direction, from past to future, has puzzled physicists for generations. Most of the fundamental equations of physics work equally well running forwards or backwards in time. So why do we only remember the past and not the future? Why does entropy always increase? Why can we affect what will happen but not what has happened? The standard answer involves the second law of thermodynamics and the low entropy of the early universe. But this just pushes the mystery back to why the universe started in such an unlikely low entropy state. But if the universe is created anew each second, then the arrow of time isn't a puzzle to be solved, but a feature of creation itself. Each moment creates the appearance of a past with lower entropy and a future with higher entropy, not because entropy actually increases over time, but because that's how each moment structures the history and future it creates. Black holes, those regions of space where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape, might be the clearest windows into continuous creation. At the singularity at the center of a black hole, our physics breaks down completely. Space and time cease to have meaning. Matter is crushed to infinite density. Perhaps black holes are points where continuous creation is most obvious, where the universe's constant self-generation is laid bare. The event horizon might not be a boundary in space, but a boundary in creation, a place where the universe's ability to create itself fresh in each moment becomes visible. The information paradox, the question of what happens to information that falls into a black hole, might be resolved if information isn't preserved or destroyed but recreated in each moment, complete and consistent but always fresh. Dark matter, that invisible substance that makes up most of the matter in the universe, detectable only through its gravitational effects, might be another clue to continuous creation. We can see its effects in the rotation of galaxies, in the bending of light around galaxy clusters, in the large-scale structure of the universe, but we have no idea what it actually is. Countless experiments have searched for dark matter particles, but none have been found. What if dark matter isn't made of particles at all, but is rather the gravitational memory of continuous creation, the universe remembering how to create itself with the right gravitational properties to make galaxies and clusters behave the way they do? Each moment, the universe creates not just visible matter, but also the gravitational effects we attribute to dark matter, maintaining the consistency that makes it seem like there's invisible matter there. The quantum vacuum, what we call empty space, is anything but empty. It seethes with virtual particles, particle-antiparticle pairs that appear and disappear in time frames, so short they don't violate conservation of energy due to the uncertainty principle. This quantum foam, as it's sometimes called, might be the mechanism of continuous creation, the universe constantly experimenting with what might exist before settling on what does exist in each moment of creation. The virtual particles aren't failed attempts at existence, but rather the universe exploring its possibilities, testing its options, before manifesting the actual particles and fields we observe. The boundary between virtual and real might be the boundary between potential and actualized creation. Cosmic inflation, that period of exponential expansion in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, might not be a historical event but an ongoing process. The universe might be inflating right now, not in the sense of expanding rapidly through existing space, but in the sense of creating vast amounts of new space, new time, new possibility in each moment. What we interpret as the slow expansion we observe today might be inflation viewed from within, like watching a balloon expand from inside the balloon. The multiverse, the idea that our universe is one of countless universes, might not be multiple universes existing separately, but rather the same universe being created slightly differently each moment, exploring all its possibilities simultaneously in an eternal now of infinite creativity. Now we descend into the delicate machinery of existence itself, into the quantum realm where the universe might be revealing its deepest secret, that creation is not a memory but a continuous process, not a violent explosion echoing through time, but a gentle breathing, a soft unfolding that happens so smoothly, so consistently, that we mistake it for stability, for permanence, for a solid reality that was established long ago and simply continues to exist. But what if reality is more like a song than a sculpture, more like a dance than a building, something that exists only in its continuous performance, its ongoing creation, its eternal becoming? Let's imagine, just for a moment, that you could slow down time. Slow it down so much that you could observe a single second stretching out before you like a vast landscape. What would you see? In our conventional understanding, you'd see particles moving slightly, waves propagating a tiny distance, chemical reactions advancing by imperceptible degrees. Everything would be almost frozen, caught in an instant of its long journey from the Big Bang to the heat death of the universe. But if the universe is being created anew each second, you might see something entirely different. You might see reality flickering, dissolving and reforming, like a photograph that disappears and reappears so quickly that it seems continuous, solid, permanent. You might see the universe breathing itself into existence, exhaling reality and inhaling possibility over and over again, so fast that we experience it as the smooth flow of time. The quantum field theory that underlies our understanding of particle physics might be giving us hints about this continuous creation. In this theory, particles aren't little balls of matter floating through empty space, but rather excitations in invisible fields that fill all of space. The electron field pervades the entire universe, and what we call an electron is just a ripple, a wave, a disturbance in this field. The photon is an excitation in the electromagnetic field. The Higgs boson is an excitation in the Higgs field. And these fields aren't static, stable things, but dynamic, fluctuating, constantly changing entities that might be the mechanism by which the universe recreates itself moment by moment. Think about a field of wheat swaying in the wind. From a distance, you see waves moving across the field, patterns that seem to have their own existence, their own reality. But zoom in and you realize that no individual wheat stalk is moving very far. Each one sways a little, affects its neighbors, returns to its starting position. The The wave isn't a thing, but a pattern, a coordination, a relationship between all the wheat stalks. Now imagine that the wheat stalks themselves are constantly disappearing and reappearing, but always in just the right position to maintain the pattern of the wave. This might be how particles and forces work in a continuously created universe, not as permanent things moving through space, but as patterns that are recreated moment by moment in just the right way to maintain the illusion of continuity. The uncertainty principle, one of the foundational principles of quantum mechanics, tells us that we can't simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect precision. The more precisely we know where something is, the less precisely we can know how fast it's moving, and vice versa. This isn't just a limitation of our measuring instruments, but a fundamental feature of reality itself. But what if this uncertainty isn't a bug, but a feature? What if it's the wiggle room the universe needs to recreate itself slightly differently each moment while maintaining overall consistency? The uncertainty principle might be the universe's way of keeping its options open, of maintaining the flexibility needed for continuous creation. Virtual particles, those ghostly entities that pop into existence and disappear in the quantum vacuum, might be the universe trying on different possibilities, experimenting with different ways of being before settling on what becomes real in each moment of creation. These particles exist for such short times that they don't violate conservation of energy, thanks to the uncertainty principle's energy-time formulation. But what if they're not really appearing and disappearing, but rather represent the universe's creative process made visible? Each virtual particle pair might be a tiny Big Bang, a miniature creation event, a small-scale version of the same process that creates the entire universe every second. The wave function collapse, that mysterious process by which quantum possibilities become classical realities when observed, has puzzled physicists since the beginning of quantum mechanics. Before observation, a quantum system exists in a superposition of states, all possibilities simultaneously real, but when we measure it, it suddenly chooses one state, one reality, one way of being. What if this collapse isn't something that happens to an existing system, but rather the moment of creation itself? What if observation doesn't collapse a wave function, but rather participates in the universe's decision about how to create itself in that moment? Consciousness, observation, measurement, these might not be external actions performed on an existing universe, but integral parts of the process by which the universe continuously brings itself into being. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that every quantum event branches the universe, creating parallel realities where every possible outcome occurs. But what if instead of branching into separate universes, the universe is constantly choosing between possibilities in its continuous creation? Each moment, it creates itself in a particular way, selecting from the infinite possibilities available, like an artist who could paint anything but chooses to paint this particular scene, this particular moment, this particular reality. The other possibilities don't become separate universes but remain as potential, as what might have been, as the quantum foam from which the next moment's creation will emerge. Entanglement, that spooky action at a distance that so troubled Einstein, might be showing us that the universe's continuous creation is a unified, holistic process, not something that happens separately at each point in space. When two particles are entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. This isn't information traveling faster than light, but rather evidence that the universe creates itself as a whole, all at once, with all parts coordinated, all relationships maintained, all entanglements preserved. The universe doesn't create particles and then entangle them, it creates them already entangled, already in relationship, already part of the unified whole. The Higgs field, which gives particles their mass, might be particularly important in continuous creation. This field has a non-zero value throughout space, unlike other quantum fields which average to zero in their ground state. It's as if the universe has a kind of baseline energy, a fundamental vibration that never stops. What if this non-zero Higgs field is the heartbeat of continuous creation, the basic rhythm to which the universe dances itself into existence? Mass itself, the property we think of as most solid, most permanent, might be nothing more than the way particles interact with this continuously creating field, gaining their apparent solidity from their participation in the universe's endless self-generation. Let's think about energy for a moment. The first law of thermodynamics tells us that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. This seems to contradict the idea of continuous creation. How can the universe be created anew each second if energy must be conserved? But conservation laws might not be constraints on the universe, but rather consistencies in how it creates itself. Each moment, the universe creates itself with exactly the same total energy as the moment before, not because energy is preserved across time, but because that's how the universe maintains its consistency, its coherence, its identity across the moments of its continuous creation. The energy doesn't persist. The pattern of energy is recreated perfectly, completely, in each new moment. The speed of light, that cosmic speed limit that nothing can exceed, might be the rate at which creation propagates through space, or perhaps the rate at which space itself is created. Light doesn't move through space so much as it surfs the wave of continuous creation, always at the boundary between what has been created and what is being created. This is why light experiences no time in its own reference frame. It exists always at the moment of creation, always at the edge where the universe is bringing itself into being. When we see light from a distant star, we're not seeing the past, but rather the universe's memory of how it creates that star's light, preserved in the pattern of continuous creation that we experience as the passage of photons through space. Gravity, the force that shapes the large-scale structure of the universe, might be the universe's memory of how to create itself with consistent relationships between masses. General relativity tells us that mass curves space-time, and objects follow the straightest possible paths through that curved space-time, which we perceive as gravitational attraction. But what if mass doesn't curve existing space-time, but rather instructs the universe how to create space-time in each moment? The curved geometry isn't a distortion of something that already exists, but rather the shape of creation itself, the pattern by which the universe brings space and time into being around massive objects. The equivalence principle, Einstein's insight that gravity and acceleration are indistinguishable, might be telling us something profound about continuous creation. If you're in a sealed room, you can't tell whether you're sitting still in a gravitational field or accelerating through space. What if this is because both situations involve the same process, the continuous creation of space-time in a particular pattern? Gravity might not be a force at all, but rather the experience of being continuously created in a particular way, with a particular relationship to the rest of the universe's ongoing creation. Quantum tunneling, the process by which particles can pass through barriers that classical physics says they shouldn't be able to cross, might be the universe exercising its creative freedom. A particle approaching a barrier doesn't actually tunnel through it, but rather the universe recreates the particle on the other side, in the next moment of creation, maintaining all the consistency required by conservation laws and quantum mechanics, but allowing for possibilities that seem impossible from a classical perspective. The universe isn't bound by barriers because barriers, like everything else, are created anew each moment, and the universe can choose to create the particle on either side, following probabilities rather than certainties. The Casimir effect, where two parallel plates in a vacuum experience an attractive force due to the quantum fluctuations between them being restricted compared to the fluctuations outside, might be direct evidence of continuous creation. The plates aren't being pushed together by existing fluctuations, but rather the universe creates them closer together moment by moment, following the pattern that emerges from how quantum creation works in restricted geometries. The force isn't something that exists between the plates, but rather the tendency of the universe to create the plates with slightly less distance between them in each successive moment of creation. Radioactive decay, that random process by which unstable nuclei transform into more stable configurations, might be the universe making different choices in its continuous creation. An unstable nucleus doesn't sit there for years and then suddenly decay. Rather, the universe recreates it moment by moment, usually in the same unstable configuration, but occasionally following quantum probabilities in a decayed state. The half-life isn't a measure of how long nuclei last, but rather the probability that the universe will choose to recreate them differently in any given moment of creation. This explains why decay is truly random, unpredictable for individual nuclei. It's the universe exercising its creative freedom within the constraints of quantum probability. The arrow of time emerges naturally from continuous creation. Each moment creates not just the present, but also a consistent past and probable futures. Entropy increases not because disorder accumulates over time, but because each moment of creation includes slightly more possibilities, slightly more complexity, slightly more ways for things to be arranged. The universe doesn't remember every detail of the past, but rather recreates a past consistent with the present, following patterns that we interpret as causation, as history, as the accumulation of changes over time. Memory itself, whether in human brains or computer chips, isn't storage of information over time, but rather the universe's choice to recreate certain patterns, certain configurations, certain relationships in each new moment of creation. Phase transitions like water freezing into ice, or iron becoming magnetic below a certain temperature, might be the universe changing how it creates matter in different conditions. The molecules don't rearrange themselves into a crystal lattice. Rather, the universe starts creating them already arranged in that pattern once the temperature drops below the critical point. The transition isn't a process that happens over time, but a change in the pattern of creation that we experience as a process. This might explain why phase transitions can happen so quickly, why they can propagate through materials at speeds that seem too fast for molecular communication. It's not molecules telling each other to change, but the universe creating them all differently in the next moment. Superconductivity, where electrical resistance drops to zero below a critical temperature, might be the universe creating electrons in perfect coordination without the slight variations that normally cause resistance. The electrons don't learn to move without resistance. The universe creates them moving that way, maintaining perfect quantum coherence in its pattern of creation. The Meissner effect, where superconductors expel magnetic fields, isn't the material pushing out existing fields, but the universe creating the space inside the superconductor without magnetic fields, moment by moment, as long as the temperature stays below critical. The quantum Zeno effect, where frequent observation can freeze a quantum system in its current state, preventing it from evolving, might be showing us how observation influences continuous creation. When we observe a system repeatedly, we're not preventing it from changing, but rather instructing the universe to recreate it in the same state each time. The system doesn't evolve not because time has stopped, but because the universe, in response to our observation, chooses to create it unchanged in each successive moment. This suggests that consciousness, observation, measurement play a fundamental role in how the universe creates itself, not as external influences but as integral parts of the creative process. Decoherence, the process by which quantum systems lose their quantum properties and become classical through interaction with their environment, might be how the universe maintains consistency in its continuous creation. A quantum system in superposition isn't really in multiple states simultaneously, but rather the universe hasn't, yet decided how to create it in the next moment. Interaction with the environment forces that decision, not by collapsing a wave function, but by requiring the universe to create the system in a definite state to maintain consistency with everything else it's creating. The environment doesn't destroy quantum coherence. It participates in the universe's decision about how to create reality in each moment. The holographic principle, which suggests that all the information in a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary, might be telling us something profound about how the universe creates itself. Perhaps the universe doesn't create the interior of regions directly, but rather creates boundaries, surfaces, interfaces, and the interior emerges from the information on these boundaries. Like a hologram, where a two-dimensional surface contains all the information needed to create a three-dimensional image, the universe might create itself from the outside in, or from lower dimensions to higher, building reality from information rather than from substance. String theory, with its suggestion that particles are vibrations in tiny, multi-dimensional strings, might be describing the fundamental mechanism of continuous creation. The strings aren't things that exist and vibrate, but rather patterns of vibration that the universe creates moment by moment. The extra dimensions aren't hidden spaces curled up too small to see, but rather additional degrees of freedom in how the universe can create itself. The different particles we observe aren't different things, but different ways the universe can create the same fundamental pattern, like different notes played on the same instrument. Loop quantum gravity, which suggests that spacetime itself is quantized, made of tiny, discrete loops rather than being smooth and continuous, might be showing us the pixels of continuous creation. Each loop isn't a piece of space that exists, but rather a unit of creation, a basic element in how the universe constructs itself moment by moment. The smooth spacetime we experience emerges from countless tiny acts of creation, like a smooth curve emerging from many small straight lines. The universe doesn't move through spacetime, but creates spacetime, loop by loop, moment by moment, in patterns that we experience as the geometry of the universe. As we contemplate these gentle mechanics of creation, these soft processes by which the universe might be breathing itself into existence moment by moment, remember that we're not trying to replace one certainty with another. We're not saying this is definitely how the universe works. We're simply exploring, wondering, allowing ourselves to imagine reality in a fundamentally different way. The equations of physics still work, the observations of astronomy are still valid, the experiments of science still reveal truth. But perhaps they're revealing not the properties of a universe that exists, but the patterns by which a universe creates itself, moment by moment, in an eternal dance of possibility becoming actuality. Here we listen, quietly, to the faint whispers of ancient light, or perhaps not ancient at all, but freshly created to seem ancient, carrying stories of a universe that appears to have a deep history, but might be writing that history anew with every passing moment. The cosmic microwave background radiation bathes the entire universe in a gentle glow, a whisper of heat just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, and scientists tell us this is the afterglow of the Big Bang, the cooled remnant of a time when the universe was young and hot and opaque to light. But what if we're not detecting an echo from the past, but rather hearing the universe humming to itself as it creates itself, a constant background song of creation that we mistake for a fading echo because that's the only way our time-bound minds can interpret it? When Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson first detected this cosmic microwave background in 1964, they thought their antenna was malfunctioning. They found a persistent noise, a hiss that wouldn't go away no matter which direction they pointed their receiver, no matter how carefully they cleaned the pigeon droppings from their equipment. This noise was everywhere, filling all of space with the same gentle whisper of microwave radiation. What they had discovered was perhaps the most important piece of evidence for the Big Bang theory, a prediction that had been made years earlier but never observed. The universe, it seemed, was still warm from its explosive birth, like a pot still radiating heat hours after being taken off the stove. But let's reconsider this discovery through the lens of continuous creation. What if Penzias and Wilson weren't detecting ancient heat, but rather the temperature of creation itself? What if 2.7 Kelvin is simply the background temperature at which the universe creates itself, the thermal signature of existence emerging from possibility? In this view, the cosmic microwave background isn't cooling over time as the universe expands, but rather the universe creates itself with this temperature, moment by moment, maintaining the perfect consistency that makes it seem like cooling when we plot our observations over years and decades. The COBE satellite, launched in 1989, gave us our first detailed map of the cosmic microwave background, revealing tiny variations in temperature, fluctuations of just a few parts in 100,000. These variations, scientists tell us, are the seeds of all structure in the universe, the slight overdensities that would eventually grow into galaxies and clusters of galaxies. The pattern of these fluctuations matches precisely what cosmologists predict from their models of cosmic inflation and the early universe. It's one of the most spectacular agreements between theory and observation in all of science. Yet if we're entertaining continuous creation, these fluctuations take on a different meaning. They're not frozen remnants of quantum fluctuations from the universe's infancy, but rather the living pattern of how the universe creates itself with slight variations, slight preferences for complexity and structure. The universe doesn't create itself uniformly, but with subtle variations that manifest as the cosmic web of galaxies and voids we observe. These patterns aren't growing from ancient seeds, but are created complete in each moment, like a vast three-dimensional painting that springs into existence already finished, with all its subtle shadings and delicate details already in place. The WMAP satellite, which operated from 2001 to 2010, refined our map of the cosmic microwave background even further, revealing features that cosmologists call acoustic peaks, patterns that supposedly formed when sound waves travelled through the hot plasma of the early universe. These peaks tell us about the composition of the universe, the balance between matter and energy, the geometry of space itself. The first peak tells us that the universe is flat, not curved. The second peak reveals the ratio of ordinary matter to dark matter. The third peak hints at the density of atoms in the early universe. It's like finding a detailed blueprint of the universe's construction, written in microwave radiation across the entire sky. But perhaps these acoustic peaks aren't fossils of ancient sound waves, but rather the harmonic frequencies at which the universe creates itself. Like a musical instrument has certain resonant frequencies at which it naturally vibrates, the universe might have certain patterns, certain structures, certain relationships that emerge naturally from its process of continuous creation. The peaks aren't echoes of sounds that travelled through ancient plasma, but rather the fundamental notes in the universe's creative symphony, the basic patterns from which all cosmic structure emerges in each moment of creation. The Planck satellite, which observed from 2009 to 2013, gave us the most detailed map yet of the cosmic microwave background, revealing features that challenge our understanding. There are anomalies, patterns that don't quite fit the standard model. There's the axis of evil, an unexpected alignment of fluctuations that seems to define a special direction in space. There's the cold spot, a region significantly colder than statistics would predict. There are hemispherical asymmetries, suggestions that the universe might not be the same in all directions. These anomalies are usually dismissed as statistical flukes or systematic errors. But what if they're telling us something important about continuous creation? Perhaps these anomalies are glimpses of the universe's creative process, moments where the consistency isn't quite perfect, where the universe creates itself slightly differently than expected. The axis of evil might not be a relic from the early universe, but rather a preferred direction in how the universe creates itself, like a grain in wood that influences how it splits. The cold spot might be a region where the universe experiments with different parameters, different patterns, different possibilities in its continuous creation. The hemispherical asymmetries might show that the universe doesn't create itself identically everywhere, but with subtle variations, subtle preferences, subtle explorations of what's possible. The polarization of the cosmic microwave background adds another layer to this story. Light can be polarized, its waves aligned in particular directions, and the cosmic microwave background shows distinct patterns of polarization that supposedly formed when light last scattered off electrons in the early universe. These polarization patterns come in two types, called E modes and B modes, with B modes potentially carrying information about gravitational waves from cosmic inflation. Scientists have detected E modes clearly, but B modes remain elusive, tantalizing, just at the edge of our ability to measure. In continuous creation, this polarization might not be a fossil record, but rather the universe's way of maintaining directional consistency as it creates itself. The E modes might represent the regular, predictable patterns of creation, while the still hidden B modes might encode the universe's creative freedom, its ability to vary, to experiment, to try new things within the constraints of physical law. The fact that B modes are so hard to detect might not be because they're faint echoes from the distant past, but because they represent the universe's moment-to-moment creativity, constantly changing, never quite the same twice. The Sunyaev-Zeldovich effect, where hot gas in galaxy clusters slightly distorts the cosmic microwave background, might be showing us continuous creation in action. As photons of the cosmic microwave background pass through these clusters, they gain energy from the hot electrons, shifting to slightly higher frequencies. In the traditional view, ancient photons are being modified by more recent structures. But perhaps what we're seeing is the universe creating these photons differently in regions with galaxy clusters, maintaining the consistency that makes it seem like they've travelled through hot gas, but actually creating them with the properties they would have if such travel had occurred. The integrated Sachs-Wolf effect, where photons gain or lose energy as they travel through changing gravitational fields, might be another window into continuous creation. As the universe expands and structures grow, gravitational potentials change, and photons climbing out of these wells experience shifts in energy. But if the universe is created anew each moment, these energy shifts aren't accumulated over billions of years of travel, but rather encoded in how the universe creates the photons in each moment, complete with the energy they would have if they had travelled through an evolving cosmos. Let's consider what other backgrounds might be filling the universe, invisible to our current instruments, but perhaps carrying information about continuous creation. There should be a cosmic neutrino background, relic neutrinos from when the universe was only 1 second old, even older than the cosmic microwave background. These neutrinos would be incredibly cold now, incredibly difficult to detect, but they should be everywhere, about 330 of them in every cubic centimetre of space. If continuous creation is true, these aren't ancient particles but rather part of how the universe creates itself, maintaining the right density, the right properties, the right relationships to make particle physics work the way we observe it. There might be a gravitational wave background, a confusion of ripples in spacetime from all the violent events in cosmic history, from merging black holes and neutron stars, from the universe's inflation, perhaps from the Big Bang itself. LIGO and Virgo have detected individual gravitational wave events, but the background remains hidden, too faint for our current technology. In continuous creation, this background wouldn't be accumulated noise from billions of years of cosmic violence, but rather the universe's way of creating spacetime with a certain texture, a certain roughness, like the grain in paper that's visible when you look closely enough. The cosmic infrared background, the accumulated light from all the stars and galaxies that have ever shone, transformed to infrared wavelengths by cosmic expansion, fills space with a gentle warmth slightly above the cosmic microwave background. This light supposedly carries the history of star formation, the story of how galaxies grew and evolved over cosmic time, but perhaps it's created fresh each moment, encoding not actual history, but the appearance of history, the consistency that makes it seem like stars have been shining for billions of years, when in fact they're created anew, already shining in each moment of universal creation. The extragalactic background light, the sum of all photons from all sources outside our galaxy, creates a fog that absorbs very high-energy gamma rays from distant sources. This fog supposedly built up over cosmic time as more and more stars formed, more and more galaxies shone. But in continuous creation, this fog doesn't accumulate but rather appears instantly, completely in each moment, with just the right density and spectrum to absorb gamma rays in the pattern we observe, maintaining the consistency that makes distant blazars fade in just the way our theories predict. Consider the cosmic ray background, the constant rain of high-energy particles that bombard Earth from all directions. Most are protons, accelerated to incredible energies by supernovae, by active galactic nuclei, by processes we don't fully understand. The highest energy cosmic rays have energies that dwarf anything we can produce in our particle accelerators, energies that challenge our understanding of what's possible. In continuous creation, these aren't ancient particles that have been travelling for millions of years, but rather part of how the universe creates itself, with extreme phenomena, with particles that push the boundaries of what's possible, with energies that probe the limits of physical law. The GZK cutoff, the theoretical maximum energy for cosmic ray protons travelling over cosmic distances, might be telling us something about continuous creation. Above a certain energy, protons should interact with the cosmic microwave background, losing energy until they fall below the cutoff. We observe this cutoff, but not quite as sharply as expected. Perhaps this isn't because ultra-high energy protons are losing energy over millions of years of travel, but rather because the universe creates them with a distribution of energies that approximates what we would expect from such energy loss, but with slight variations, slight exceptions, slight hints that the standard picture isn't quite complete. Dark matter, invisible and mysterious, might be leaving its own background signatures that we haven't learned to read yet. If dark matter particles occasionally annihilate or decay, they should produce a background of gamma rays, of neutrinos, of other particles that might be detectable with sensitive enough instruments. Searches for these signatures have so far come up empty, placing ever tighter constraints on what dark matter could be. But if the universe is continuously created, dark matter might not be made of particles at all, but rather be a feature of how space itself is created, a kind of gravitational memory that the universe maintains as it recreates itself moment by moment. The missing satellites problem, where we observe fewer small galaxies around the Milky Way than dark matter simulations predict, might be a clue about continuous creation. The standard explanation is that star formation is suppressed in the smallest dark matter halos, making these galaxies too faint to detect, but perhaps the universe simply doesn't create as many small galaxies as our simulations suggest it should, exercising a kind of creative preference for certain scales, certain structures, certain arrangements of matter and dark matter. The cuspy halo problem, where dark matter simulations predict dense cores in galaxy centers, but observations show more diffuse distributions, might be another hint. Perhaps dark matter doesn't accumulate over billions of years into dense cusps, but rather the universe creates it already distributed in the patterns we observe, with cores that are less dense than pure gravitational accumulation would produce, as if the universe has an aesthetic preference for certain arrangements, certain distributions, certain ways of organizing matter and space. Let me paint you a picture of what it might be like to observe the universe if we could see continuous creation directly. Imagine you had eyes that could see not just light, but the process of creation itself. Looking out into space, you wouldn't see distant galaxies shining with ancient light, but rather galaxies being created right now, complete with their apparent history, their apparent distance, their apparent age. The cosmic microwave background wouldn't be a faint glow from the past, but rather the universe's aura, its creative field, visible everywhere as the gentle signature of existence coming into being. You might see waves of creation rippling through space, not moving from place to place, but rather showing the universe creating itself with slight variations, slight changes, the patterns that we interpret as the flow of time. Galaxies wouldn't be moving apart due to expansion, but rather being created farther apart in each successive moment. Stars wouldn't be burning through their nuclear fuel, but rather being created in various stages of what appears to be stellar evolution, maintaining the consistency that makes it seem like they've been shining for millions or billions of years. The backgrounds we observe, from microwaves to neutrinos to gravitational waves, wouldn't be accumulated signals from cosmic history, but rather the universe's way of creating itself with richness, with depth, with the appearance of history that gives meaning and context to the present moment. Like an artist who paints not just a figure but also shadows that suggest light sources outside the frame, backgrounds that suggest depth and history, the universe creates not just the present, but all the echoes and shadows and backgrounds that make the present seem connected to a deep past and an open future. The cosmic web, that vast network of galaxies and dark matter that spans the observable universe, wouldn't be a structure that grew over billions of years, but rather a pattern that the universe creates complete in each moment. Like frost on a window that appears to have grown crystal by crystal, but actually forms all at once when conditions are right, the cosmic web might spring into existence complete, with all its filaments and voids and clusters already in place, already perfect, already ancient seeming despite being freshly created. As we listen to these cosmic backgrounds, these whispers in the darkness that seem to tell stories of an ancient universe, remember that we might be hearing something far more immediate, far more present. We might be hearing the universe singing itself into existence right now, using these backgrounds as harmonies, as rhythms, as the underlying music to which all of creation dances. The cosmic microwave background might be the bass note, steady and omnipresent. The gravitational wave background might be the rhythm, subtle variations in the fabric of space-time. The various particle backgrounds might be melodies, weaving through space, creating the rich tapestry of phenomena we observe. We now imagine the cosmos not as a single universe, but as an ocean where countless universes gently rise, like bubbles, one after another, every second, each one complete, each one whole, each one containing its own stars, its own galaxies, its own possibilities for complexity and consciousness. This isn't the violent multiverse of eternal inflation, where universes bud off from each other in an endless fractal of creation, nor is it the quantum many-worlds where every possibility branches into its own reality. This is something gentler, more unified, more like waves on an ocean where each wave is the entire ocean expressing itself in a particular moment, a particular configuration, a particular way of being. Picture yourself standing on a beach at night, the ocean invisible in the darkness but audible in the constant rush and retreat of waves. Each wave that breaks on the shore seems separate, distinct, with its own height, its own force, its own pattern of foam and spray. Yet you know that all these waves are the same ocean, the same water, the same vast body that extends beyond the horizon. Now imagine that each wave contains, somehow, the entire ocean, all its water, all its salt, all its life, compressed into that single moment of breaking on the shore. This is how we might think of universes in continuous creation, each one complete, containing everything, yet part of something larger, something that transcends our usual categories of one and many. The idea of multiple universes has ancient roots, appearing in Hindu cosmology, in Buddhist philosophy, in the atomist speculations of ancient Greece. But in modern physics, the multiverse has emerged from multiple directions, each suggesting that our universe might not be alone. Eternal inflation suggests that our Big Bang was just one of countless similar events in an ever-expanding metaspace. String theory suggests there might be 10 to 100 different ways to compactify the extra dimensions, each giving rise to a universe with different physical laws. Quantum mechanics, in its many worlds interpretation, suggests that every quantum event branches reality into parallel universes. But what if all these approaches are glimpsing the same truth from different angles? The truth that existence is not singular but multiple, not one creation, but endless creation. In continuous creation, we don't need separate spaces for separate universes. Instead, the same space, the same quantum fields, the same fundamental reality expresses itself differently in each moment of creation. Like a kaleidoscope that creates endless patterns from the same pieces of coloured glass, the universe creates endless variations of itself from the same fundamental elements. Each moment brings a new pattern, a new configuration, a new universe that contains all the others implicitly, like a hologram where each piece contains the whole image, but from a slightly different perspective. Think about this from the perspective of quantum field theory. The quantum fields that underlie all particles and forces exist in what physicists call a vacuum state, the lowest energy configuration of the field. But there might be multiple vacuum states, multiple ways for the fields to settle into their ground state, like a ball that could rest in any of several valleys in a hilly landscape. In the standard view, our universe happened to fall into one particular vacuum state shortly after the Big Bang, determining the masses of particles, the strengths of forces, all the parameters that govern physics as we know it. But what if the universe doesn't stay in one vacuum state, but rather explores different states in each moment of creation, each one giving rise to a slightly different universe with slightly different properties? The anthropic principle, the observation that the universe seems fine-tuned for the existence of conscious observers, takes on new meaning in this view. We don't need to invoke countless separate universes to explain why we find ourselves in one that supports our existence. Instead, the universe creates itself in each moment, with properties that maintain the consistency of conscious observation. Consciousness doesn't emerge in a universe that happens to have the right properties. Rather, the universe creates itself with the right properties because consciousness is part of the creative process. The universe and consciousness are not separate things, one containing the other, but aspects of the same continuous creation, each defining and maintaining the other. Let me describe what these bubble universes might be like, rising from the ocean of possibility every second. Each one would be complete, containing all the galaxies we observe, all the stars, all the planets, all the life. But the details would vary, perhaps imperceptibly, perhaps dramatically. In one, an electron in a distant galaxy might spin up instead of down. In another, a photon might take a slightly different path through space. In yet another, the fundamental constants might shift by an immeasurable amount, the speed of light slightly faster, the mass of the electron slightly lighter. Most of these variations would be too small to notice, but they would accumulate, creating a kind of quantum foam of possibilities at the level of entire universes. Some bubbles might be radically different. The laws of physics might take different forms, not violating any deep principles but expressing them differently. Gravity might be stronger or weaker. There might be different numbers of spatial dimensions accessible to matter. The arrow of time might point in different directions or loop back on itself. These wouldn't be failed universes or broken realities, but equally valid expressions of the creative principle, equally real, equally complete, but not equally conducive to the kind of complexity and consciousness we experience. They would rise from the ocean of possibility and dissolve back into it, leaving no trace except perhaps subtle influences on the universes that follow. The quantum Zeno effect, where frequent observation can freeze a quantum system in place, might work at the level of entire universes. Our consciousness, our observation, our participation in reality might tend to recreate universes similar to the one we're experiencing, maintaining consistency, preserving the patterns that allow for stable existence and coherent experience. We're not passive observers of a single universe, but active participants in the selection of which universe gets created in each moment. This isn't conscious choice in the usual sense, but something deeper, more fundamental, the way consciousness and cosmos dance together in the continuous creation of reality. Consider what happens when you make a decision, when you choose one path over another. In the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, both choices happen in different branches of reality. But in continuous creation with its ocean of universes, your choice influences which universe gets created next. The universe doesn't branch, it recreates itself consistent with your choice. All the other possibilities remain in the ocean of potential, perhaps to be explored in future moments of creation, perhaps to remain forever unexpressed. Your free will, if it exists, is not the ability to change an existing universe, but to participate in the selection of which universe comes into being. This connects to the measurement problem in quantum mechanics in a profound way. When we measure a quantum system, we don't collapse a wave function that exists in our universe. We select which universe we experience from the ocean of possibilities. The electron wasn't really in a superposition of states, rather there were multiple potential universes, each with the electron in a different state, and measurement is the process by which one of these universes becomes the one we experience. The other possibilities don't disappear into parallel worlds. They dissolve back into the ocean of potential, perhaps to rise again in future moments of creation. Dark energy, that mysterious force that's accelerating the expansion of the universe, might be the pressure of all these potential universes, the creative force that drives continuous creation. The universe isn't just expanding, it's creating new space, new time, new possibilities at an accelerating rate. Each bubble universe is slightly larger than the last, not because space is stretching, but because each new creation includes more space, more room for complexity, more potential for new forms of existence. The acceleration isn't a change in the rate of expansion, but an increase in the rate of creation. The ocean of universes becoming more active, more creative, more exploratory over what we perceive as cosmic time. The information paradox of black holes might be resolved if information isn't preserved within a single universe, but distributed across the ocean of universes. When matter falls into a black hole, the information about its quantum state doesn't need to be preserved on the event horizon or radiated away in Hawking radiation. Instead, it influences which universes get created next, biasing the selection toward universes consistent with that information. Black holes aren't destroyers of information but transformers of it, converting local information about particles and fields into global information about which universes arise from the ocean of possibility. Let's imagine traveling between these universes, not through space but through the moments of creation. You wouldn't need a spaceship or a wormhole, you'd need only to exist through multiple moments, experiencing the subtle shifts as one universe dissolves and another rises to take its place. Most of the time, the transitions would be imperceptible, the new universe so similar to the old that you couldn't tell the difference. But occasionally you might notice something, a star that seems slightly brighter, a quantum experiment that gives an unexpected result, a memory that doesn't quite match the records, a feeling that something has changed even though you can't say what. The Mandela effect, where large groups of people remember things differently from recorded history, is usually dismissed as false memory or confabulation. But what if some people are sensitive to the shifts between universes, retaining memories from universes that no longer exist, from moments of creation that have dissolved back into the ocean? This isn't to say that every misremembered movie line or product name is evidence of parallel universes, but rather to suggest that consciousness might not be perfectly synchronized with the continuous creation of reality, that sometimes we might carry traces of universes that were created and then replaced by slightly different ones. Quantum immortality, the idea that consciousness always finds itself in universes where it survives, takes on a different character in this ocean of universes. It's not that there are parallel worlds where you die and others where you survive, with your consciousness somehow always finding itself in the survival branches. Instead, the universe tends to recreate itself in ways that maintain the consistency of conscious observation. Death still happens, but perhaps consciousness influences which universes get created, biasing the selection toward continuity, toward persistence, toward the maintenance of awareness. This isn't personal immortality but something more subtle, a tendency for the ocean of universes to create bubbles that support and maintain consciousness wherever it has emerged. The fine-tuning of the universe's parameters might not be fine-tuning at all, but rather the natural result of consciousness participating in continuous creation. The universe doesn't have the perfect parameters for consciousness by chance or by design, but because consciousness and cosmos create each other moment by moment in a dance of mutual specification. The parameters aren't fixed values that were set at the Big Bang, but living, dynamic qualities that are recreated in each moment, maintained by the requirement that they support the consciousness that observes them. Change consciousness, and the parameters might shift. Eliminate consciousness, and the parameters might become undefined, the universe returning to the undifferentiated ocean of possibility. Think about evolution in this context. Life doesn't evolve within a fixed universe over billions of years, but rather the universe creates itself with life already evolved to its current state, complete with the fossil record, the genetic relationships, the appearance of deep history. But the process of evolution still happens, not through time, but through the selection of which universes get created. Universes with slightly more complex life, slightly better adapted organisms, slightly richer ecosystems are more likely to be selected from the ocean of possibilities. Evolution isn't a process in time, but a principle of selection in continuous creation, a tendency for the universe to create itself with increasing complexity, increasing awareness, increasing capacity for experience. The measurement of quantum systems might be revealing this ocean of universes to us. When physicists perform a quantum eraser experiment, where they can seemingly change the past by choosing whether or not to measure certain information, they might not be changing a fixed past, but rather selecting which universe, complete with its past, they experience. The delayed choice quantum eraser, where the choice can be made after the photons have already been detected, shows that the entire history of the photons, their path through the apparatus, whether they interfered or not, all of this is determined by choices made in what we call the future. But if universes are created complete with their histories, this makes perfect sense. We're not changing the past, we're choosing which past we experience. Retrocausality, the idea that future events can influence past events, becomes natural in this view. The future doesn't reach back through time to change the past. Rather, each moment of creation includes both past and future, adjusted to maintain consistency. An experiment performed today creates a universe with a history consistent with that experiment, even if that history seems to require influences from what we call the future. Time doesn't flow from past to future, or from future to past, but emerges complete in each moment of creation, with all the correlations, all the causal relationships, all the appearances of influence and determination already in place. The quantum suicide thought experiment, where a person's survival depends on quantum events, supposedly demonstrates many worlds by ensuring the experimenter always finds themselves in the survival timeline. But in the ocean of universes model, this takes on a different meaning. It's not that there are multiple versions of you, some dying and some surviving. Instead, consciousness influences which universe gets created next, biasing strongly toward universes where conscious observers continue to observe. This isn't magical thinking, but a fundamental principle. Universes with conscious observers are more likely to be selected from the ocean of possibilities because consciousness participates in the selection process. Consider the role of intention and will in this ocean of universes. When you intend to move your arm, you don't send signals through an existing nervous system in a fixed universe. Instead, your intention participates in selecting a universe where your arm is moving, complete with all the neural activity, muscle contractions, and physical movements that would have led to that motion. Free will isn't the ability to change physical events within a deterministic universe, but the capacity to influence which universe gets created from the ocean of possibilities. Your choices don't violate physical laws, they select which lawful universe you experience. The placebo effect, where belief influences physical healing, might be showing us this selection process in action. A person who believes they're receiving effective treatment doesn't just feel better psychologically. They can show real, measurable physical improvements. In the ocean of universes model, their belief influences which universe gets created, biasing toward universes where their body is healthier, where their symptoms are reduced, where healing has occurred. The sugar pill doesn't cause healing in a fixed universe. Belief selects a universe where healing happens, complete with all the biochemical changes that would have produced that healing. Synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that seem too unlikely to be chance, might be glimpses of the selection process. When you think of someone and they call, when you need something and it appears, when events align in ways that seem impossibly meaningful, you might be experiencing the tendency for consciousness to select universes that reflect its contents, its needs, its patterns. This isn't supernatural but natural at the deepest level, consciousness and cosmos dancing together in the continuous creation of reality, each influencing the other in ways that transcend our usual notions of cause and effect. The observer effect in quantum mechanics, where observation changes the behavior of quantum systems, is perhaps the clearest window into this ocean of universes. The double-slit experiment, where electrons behave as waves when unobserved but as particles when observed, isn't showing us electrons that somehow know they're being watched. Instead, it's showing us that observation selects which universe we experience, one where electrons travelled as waves and created interference patterns, or one where they travelled as particles and didn't interfere. The electron doesn't change its behaviour. We select which behaviour we observe by choosing which universe we experience. As we float in this ocean of universes, each bubble rising for a moment before dissolving back into possibility, we might wonder about the nature of identity, of continuity, of what makes you you from one moment to the next. If universes are constantly being created and dissolved, if you're rebuilt from scratch every second, complete with memories of a past that was just created, what persists? Perhaps nothing persists in the physical sense, but pattern persists, relationship persists. The dance of consciousness and cosmos continues even as the dancers are renewed with each beat of the cosmic music. In this chapter, we bring the idea closer to home, wondering what stars and planets might be like if the universe is always, quietly, starting somewhere, everywhere, in each grain of sand, in each drop of water, in each breath you take as you listen to these words drifting through the darkness. We've been exploring vast scales, cosmic backgrounds, oceans of universes, but now let's consider what continuous creation means for the familiar objects of our night sky. The stars that seem to burn steadily for millions of years, the planets that orbit in their ancient paths, the delicate phenomenon of life that has supposedly evolved over billions of years, but might be created fresh and complete in each moment, already complex, already aware, already wondering about its own existence. Look up at the night sky, if you can see it from where you are, or simply imagine it. Thousands of stars visible to the naked eye, each one a sun, many with their own planets, their own possibilities for worlds like or unlike our own. In the traditional view, these stars formed from collapsing clouds of gas, ignited their nuclear furnaces, and have been burning ever since, slowly fusing hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, building the elements that make planets and life possible. But what if these stars aren't burning through fuel, accumulated billions of years ago, but are being created moment by moment in their current state, complete with the appearance of age, the spectrum that suggests ongoing fusion, the neutrinos that seem to come from nuclear reactions in their cores? A star in continuous creation wouldn't be a ball of gas held together by gravity and heated by fusion, at least not in the sense of being a persistent object that maintains itself through time. Instead, it would be a pattern that the universe recreates moment by moment, a configuration of matter and energy that appears with all the properties we associate with a star, the right temperature gradient from core to surface, the right balance between gravitational collapse and radiation pressure, the right nuclear reaction rates to produce the observed luminosity. The star doesn't maintain this balance through billions of years of careful equilibrium. The universe creates it already in balance, already stable, already shining with the light we see. Consider our own sun, that familiar star that has supposedly been shining for 4.5 billion years and will continue for another 5 billion before swelling into a red giant and eventually fading to a white dwarf. Every second, the sun converts about 4 million tons of matter into energy through nuclear fusion, energy that takes thousands of years to work its way from the core to the surface, then 8 minutes to travel to Earth as sunlight. But in continuous creation, none of this journey actually happens. The universe creates the sun complete with photons already at its surface, already travelling through space, already striking Earth with exactly the spectrum, exactly the intensity, exactly the variations we observe. The 8-minute delay isn't light travelling through existing space, but the universe maintaining consistency in how it creates light and source and observer. Solar neutrinos, those ghostly particles that stream from the sun's core, passing through Earth as if it weren't there, provide what scientists consider direct evidence of fusion reactions happening right now in the sun's centre. Detectors deep underground capture a few of these neutrinos, confirming our models of stellar fusion. But perhaps these neutrinos aren't products of ongoing fusion, but part of how the universe creates the sun, complete with all the particles that would be produced by fusion, maintaining the consistency that makes it impossible to distinguish continuous creation from continuous fusion. The universe doesn't just create the sun, it creates all the evidence of the sun's supposed nuclear processes, all the neutrinos, all the convection patterns, all the magnetic fields, everything that makes the sun appear to be a functioning fusion reactor. Stellar evolution, the process by which stars supposedly change over millions or billions of years, would take on a different meaning in continuous creation. We observe stars in various stages of what we interpret as their life cycles. Young protostars still gathering mass from surrounding gas, main sequence stars like our sun steadily fusing hydrogen, red giants swollen and cooling, white dwarfs slowly fading, neutron stars spinning rapidly, black holes bending space around them. In the traditional view, we're seeing different stars at different stages of evolution, like seeing different people at different ages. But perhaps we're seeing the universe creating stars in different configurations, not because they've evolved to those states, but because the universe explores all possible stellar configurations in its continuous creation. The Hertzsprung-Russell diagram, that fundamental tool of stellar astronomy that plots stars by temperature and luminosity, supposedly shows the evolutionary path stars follow as they age. Main sequence stars burn hydrogen in their cores, then evolve into giants when the hydrogen runs out, then shed their outer layers and fade as white dwarfs, or explode as supernovae if they're massive enough. But in continuous creation, this diagram might not show evolutionary paths, but rather the range of stellar configurations the universe creates. Stars don't move along these paths over time, they're created at different points on the diagram, complete with all the properties appropriate to that configuration, including the apparent age, the chemical composition, the internal structure that astronomers infer from astrocosmology. Variable stars, those that change in brightness over periods of days, months, or years, might be showing us the universe experimenting with different stellar configurations in its continuous creation. Cepheid variables, which pulsate with periods related to their luminosity and serve as cosmic distance markers, might not be stars mechanically oscillating due to opacity changes in their atmospheres, but rather stars that the universe creates differently from moment to moment, following patterns that maintain consistency with our observations but without any actual mechanical pulsation. The universe remembers the phase of each variable star and recreates it appropriately in each moment, maintaining the regularity that makes them useful as standard candles. Binary stars, two stars orbiting their common centre of mass, wouldn't be ancient partners that have been dancing together since their formation from the same gas cloud. Instead, they would be created moment by moment in their orbital configuration, complete with the appearance of orbital motion, the Doppler shifts that reveal their velocities, the eclipses that occur when one passes in front of the other. The universe maintains their relationship, their orbital parameters, their mutual influences, not through the persistence of gravitational attraction over time, but through consistent recreation of their pattern, their dance, their cosmic partnership. Planets would be even more intricate creations, especially planets like Earth with their complex geology, atmospheres and biospheres. In continuous creation, Earth isn't a ball of rock that formed from planetesimals 4.5 billion years ago, developing through bombardment, differentiation, plate tectonics, and biological evolution. Instead, it's created complete in each moment with all its layers, all its rocks that seem to tell stories of ancient seas and mountains, all its fossils that seem to record the history of life, all its isotope ratios that seem to indicate billions of years of radioactive decay. The universe doesn't just create a planet, it creates an entire history, an entire story, an entire world complete with all the evidence of deep time. Plate tectonics, the slow dance of continents across Earth's surface, wouldn't be an ongoing process driven by convection in the mantle. The plates, the mid-ocean ridges where new seafloor supposedly forms, the subduction zones where old seafloor supposedly disappears, the hot spots that supposedly show mantle plumes rising from deep below. All of these would be created as they are in each moment, not moving through existing space but recreated in slightly different positions, maintaining the pattern that makes it seem like they've been moving for millions of years. The universe creates Earth with Africa and South America positioned just so, with coastlines that match like puzzle pieces, with rock formations that seem continuous across ocean basins, with fossil distributions that suggest ancient connections, all without any actual movement, any actual history, any actual deep time. The geological record, those layers of rock that geologists read like pages in Earth's autobiography, would be created complete, rather than accumulated over eons. The Grand Canyon wouldn't be carved by the Colorado River over millions of years, but created with all its layers already exposed, already telling their apparent stories of ancient seas, deserts, swamps, and rivers. Each layer would be created with the right fossils, the right minerals, the right isotope ratios, the right magnetic orientations to maintain consistency with the scientific story of Earth's history, but all of it would be fresh, new, created in this moment along with everything else. Life itself, in all its staggering complexity and diversity, would be the most remarkable aspect of continuous creation. Every living thing, from the simplest bacteria to the most complex mammals, would be created complete in each moment, not evolved over billions of years, but manifested fully formed with all the appearance of evolutionary history. DNA sequences that show relationships between species, fossil transitions that seem to document evolutionary change, embryological similarities that suggest common ancestry. All of these would be created as patterns that maintain consistency, that tell a coherent story, but without any actual history of descent with modification. Consider a single cell, perhaps one of the trillions in your own body. In the traditional view, this cell is the product of an unbroken chain of cell divisions, stretching back to the first self-replicating molecules billions of years ago. Its DNA carries the accumulated mutations and modifications of countless generations. Its molecular machinery has been refined by natural selection over eons of trial and error. But in continuous creation, this cell springs into existence complete, with DNA that encodes all the information needed for its function, with ribosomes already translating RNA into proteins, with mitochondria already producing ATP, with membranes already maintaining the delicate balance between inside and outside. The cell doesn't inherit its complexity, it's created complex, created functional, created alive. Evolution, in this view, wouldn't be a process that occurs through time, but a principle that guides continuous creation. The universe doesn't create life randomly, but with patterns that reflect what we interpret as evolutionary relationships. Species that appear related are created with similar DNA sequences, similar anatomical structures, similar biochemical pathways, not because they inherited these similarities from common ancestors, but because the universe maintains consistency in how it creates life. Natural selection doesn't operate on variations that arise through mutation over generations. Instead, the universe creates life already selected, already adapted to its environment, already expressing the patterns we interpret as the results of evolution. Ecosystems, those intricate webs of relationships between organisms and their environment, would be created complete rather than assembled over time. A forest wouldn't grow from seeds over decades and centuries. It would be created with mature trees already in place, with soil already enriched by what seems like generations of fallen leaves, with mycorrhizal networks already connecting roots underground, with all the insects, birds, mammals, and microorganisms already in their ecological niches. The universe creates not just individual organisms, but entire communities, entire systems, entire biomes, complete with all their interdependencies and energy flows. The carbon cycle, the water cycle, the nitrogen cycle, all the biogeochemical cycles that supposedly move elements through organisms and environment over years, decades, centuries, would be illusions of continuous creation. Carbon doesn't actually move from atmosphere to plants to animals to soil and back to atmosphere. Instead, the universe creates carbon in different forms and locations moment by moment, maintaining the patterns that make it seem like cycling. A carbon atom in your body wasn't really in a plant last year and in the atmosphere the year before. It was created just now in your body, complete with the isotope ratios that make it seem ancient, that allow scientists to use carbon dating to assign ages to organic materials. Extinction events, those catastrophic episodes that supposedly punctuate the history of life, would be patterns in how the universe creates life rather than actual historical events. The asteroid that supposedly killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago, leaving its trace as a layer of iridium-enriched clay found worldwide, wouldn't be a historical impact, but part of how the universe creates Earth's geology and fossil record. The universe creates Earth with dinosaur fossils below this layer and mammal fossils above it, maintaining the consistency that makes it seem like a historical transition, but without any actual asteroid, any actual extinction, any actual passage of millions of years. The origin of life, that mysterious transition from non-living chemistry to self-replicating biology, wouldn't be a historical event that occurred in warm ponds or hydrothermal vents billions of years ago. Instead, life would be a pattern that the universe includes in its continuous creation. Not something that emerged from matter, but something that's created along with matter, as fundamental to the universe's creative expression as particles and forces. The universe doesn't create dead matter that somehow becomes alive. It creates living matter, already organized, already metabolizing, already reproducing, already aware at whatever level of awareness that organism possesses. Consciousness, the most mysterious aspect of life, would be even more integral to continuous creation. A conscious being wouldn't be matter that somehow became aware through complex neural organization. It would be created conscious, created experiencing, created with all the memories and personality patterns that define its identity. Your consciousness, as you experience it right now, wouldn't be the product of neural activity in a brain that developed over years of growth and experience. Instead, you would be created in this moment already conscious, already aware, already you, complete with all your memories, all your thoughts, all your feelings, even the sensation of having existed before this moment. The hard problem of consciousness, how subjective experience arises from objective matter, dissolves in continuous creation. Consciousness doesn't arise from matter, because matter and consciousness are created together, two aspects of the same creative process. The universe doesn't create unconscious matter that somehow becomes conscious. It creates conscious beings already aware, already experiencing, already wondering about their own existence. The neurons in your brain, with all their complex connections and firing patterns, don't generate consciousness. They're created along with consciousness in patterns that maintain consistency, that make it seem like consciousness emerges from neural activity. Memory, in this view, wouldn't be information stored in neural patterns over time, but part of how the universe creates conscious beings. You don't remember yesterday because information about yesterday is encoded in your neurons. You remember yesterday because the universe creates you with memories of yesterday, complete and vivid and feeling real, even though yesterday, in the continuous creation view, never actually happened. The universe creates not just your present experience, but your entire remembered past, your sense of identity, your feeling of continuity from moment to moment. Sleep and dreams might be showing us something profound about continuous creation. When you sleep, especially in deep, dreamless sleep, your conscious experience temporarily ceases. In continuous creation, this might be when the universe recreates you most dramatically, updating your pattern, refreshing your existence, preparing you for another day of conscious experience. Dreams might be the universe experimenting with different ways of creating you, different memories, different identities, different relationships with reality, all within the safe space of sleep where these experiments don't have to maintain consistency with the waking world. Death in continuous creation wouldn't be the end of a process that began with birth, but simply the universe ceasing to recreate a particular pattern of consciousness. The atoms of your body don't actually disperse into the environment. Instead, the universe stops creating them in the configuration that is you and starts creating them in other configurations. But the pattern that is you, the information that defines your identity, might influence how the universe creates itself in the future, not through supernatural persistence, but through the universe's tendency to maintain and elaborate on patterns that have been part of its creative expression. This brings us to one of the most profound implications of continuous creation. The possibility that consciousness, life, and complexity are not accidents in an indifferent universe, but fundamental features of how the universe creates itself. The universe doesn't happen to create conditions suitable for life. It creates life as an essential part of its creative expression. Stars don't happen to forge the elements necessary for biology. They're created forging those elements because biology is part of the pattern. Planets don't happen to have the right conditions for life. They're created with those conditions because life is not an unlikely accident, but a necessary manifestation of continuous creation. As we contemplate these quiet worlds between bangs, these stars and planets and living things that seem so permanent but might be freshly created in each moment, remember that this view doesn't diminish their reality or importance. A sunset is no less beautiful if the sun was created moments ago rather than billions of years ago. Love is no less meaningful if the beloved is recreated each second rather than persisting through time. Life is no less precious if it's continuously created rather than historically evolved. Indeed, these things might be more remarkable, more worthy of awe if they're not just accidents that happened once long ago, but choices the universe makes again and again, moment after moment, in its continuous creative expression. The night sky, with its stars and planets, its possibilities for life and consciousness, wouldn't be a museum of ancient light, but a gallery of current creation, each star freshly painted, each planet newly sculpted, each potential life form imagined into being. When you look up at the stars, or when you simply imagine them there above the clouds, above the ceiling, above whatever separates you from the cosmic dark, you're not seeing the past but the present, not history but immediacy, not distant suns but immediate creations that exist right now, in this moment, in this eternal beginning that we share. Now the lens turns inward, to you, breathing slowly, listening in the dark, as we gently ask what it means to be conscious in a universe that may be forever beginning, where every heartbeat might coincide with a cosmos being born, where every thought might participate in the selection of which reality manifests from the infinite ocean of possibility. You're not merely an observer of this cosmic dance, but an integral participant. Your awareness not a late addition to an ancient universe, but perhaps one of the fundamental features that guides how the universe creates itself moment after moment, in an eternal collaboration between mind and matter, between consciousness and cosmos. Feel your breath for a moment, that gentle rise and fall of your chest, the air moving in and out of your lungs, bringing oxygen to your blood, to your brain, to the very neurons that are somehow generating or participating in your experience of these words. In the traditional view, this is a mechanical process that's been going on since you were born, since that first gasping breath when you emerge from the womb. Your lungs developed in utero according to genetic instructions encoded in DNA, instructions refined by billions of years of evolution. But what if each breath is the first breath, the universe creating you anew with lungs already formed, blood already oxygenated, neurons already configured to generate consciousness, all in this single moment that feels like one of many but might be the only moment that truly exists. Your consciousness, this mysterious ability to experience, to know that you know, to be aware of being aware, is perhaps the deepest mystery in all of science. We can describe neural correlates of consciousness, patterns of brain activity associated with different conscious states, but we have no idea how subjective experience arises from objective processes. This is the hard problem of consciousness, the explanatory gap between physical description and phenomenal experience. But in a universe that begins again each second, consciousness doesn't need to arise from matter because both are created together, two aspects of the same continuous creation, each defining and necessitating the other. Think about your memories, those mental photographs and movies that seem to document your journey through life. You remember being a child, perhaps specific moments of joy or fear or wonder that shaped who you became. You remember yesterday, what you ate, whom you talked to, how you felt as you moved through your day. These memories feel like recordings of actual events, neural patterns laid down when those events occurred, strengthened each time you recall them. But if the universe is created anew each second, complete with you and your brain and all its neural patterns, then these memories aren't recordings of a past that actually happened, but part of how you're created in this moment, complete with a sense of history, a sense of identity, a sense of having lived through all the experiences you remember. This might seem to rob your life of meaning, to make your experiences less real. But consider the alternative perspective. Every moment, the universe chooses to create you with these particular memories, this particular sense of self, this particular conscious experience. Your memories aren't accidents of history, but deliberate choices in how the universe constructs consciousness. The universe doesn't just create a generic human awareness, but specifically you, with all your unique experiences, perspectives, and ways of being conscious. You're not a random accumulation of experiences, but a carefully crafted pattern of awareness that the universe recreates, moment by moment, because something about your particular consciousness is essential to its creative expression. Consider the phenomenon of attention, your ability to focus consciousness on particular aspects of experience while letting others fade into the background. Right now, you might be focused on these words, on their meaning, on the images and ideas they evoke. But you could shift your attention to the feeling of your body against whatever surface supports you, to the sounds around you, to the quality of light in your space. In the traditional view, attention is a neurological process, networks in your brain highlighting certain signals while suppressing others. But in continuous creation, attention might be how you participate in selecting which universe manifests from the ocean of possibilities, your focus helping to determine which aspects of reality get created in full detail and which remain as vague potentials. The binding problem in neuroscience asks how separate processing streams in the brain combine to create unified conscious experience. Different areas process color, motion, form, sound, touch, but somehow these all bind together into a single, coherent experience of reality. No one has found the neural mechanism that accomplishes this binding, but if consciousness is created whole, rather than assembled from parts, the binding problem dissolves. The universe doesn't create separate sensory processes that need to be bound together. It creates unified conscious experience already bound, already coherent, already whole. Your experience isn't built up from components, but created complete, like a painting that appears all at once rather than stroke by stroke. Dreams offer a particularly interesting window into consciousness in continuous creation. When you dream, you experience vivid realities that seem completely real while you're in them. You might be in impossible places, interacting with people who don't exist or who died years ago, experiencing events that violate the laws of physics, yet it all seems perfectly normal until you wake. What if dreams are showing you the universe's creative process more directly? In dreams, the constraints of consistency are relaxed. The universe experiments more freely with how to create your conscious experience. You might be seeing alternative ways you could be created, alternative memories, alternative identities, alternative relationships with reality. Lucid dreams, where you become aware that you're dreaming while still in the dream, might be moments when your consciousness directly experiences its participation in continuous creation. When you realize you're dreaming and can suddenly fly, transform the dreamscape, manifest objects or people at will, you might be experiencing what consciousness is always doing at a deeper level, participating in the selection and creation of reality. The difference is that in waking life, the constraints of consistency are much stronger. The universe maintains much stricter rules about what can be created from moment to moment, while in lucid dreams, these constraints are loosened, allowing your conscious will more direct influence over the created reality. The sense of self, that feeling of being a continuous individual moving through time, would be one of the most remarkable creations in this view. You feel like the same person who woke up this morning, the same person who was born however many years ago, the same person who will continue into the future. This sense of continuity, of identity, of being a self, isn't maintained by actual continuity through time, but by the universe, creating you in each moment, with memories, personality patterns, and a sense of identity that connects to what seems like your past and future. The self isn't a thing that persists, but a pattern that's recreated moment by moment, with such consistency that it feels like persistence. Free will, that contentious question of whether you truly choose or merely experience the illusion of choice, takes on new dimensions in continuous creation. You don't have free will in the sense of being able to change events in a deterministic universe, but you might have something more profound, the ability to influence which universe gets created next. When you decide to move your hand, you don't send signals through an existing nervous system. Your decision participates in selecting a universe where your hand is moving. Your will doesn't operate within reality but participates in the creation of reality. This isn't the libertarian free will of philosophy, the ability to have done otherwise in identical circumstances, but something deeper. Participation in the continuous creative process that generates circumstances themselves. The placebo effect demonstrates this participation dramatically. When someone believes they're receiving effective treatment and their body responds with real, measurable healing, they're not just thinking themselves better within a fixed biological system. Their belief, their consciousness, their expectation participates in selecting which universe manifests, one where their body is healthier, where their symptoms are reduced, where healing has occurred. The sugar pill doesn't cause healing. Consciousness selects a reality where healing happens. This isn't mind over matter, but mind and matter creating each other in the dance of continuous creation. Meditation might be a practice of experiencing continuous creation more directly. When you sit quietly, watching thoughts arise and pass, observing the stream of consciousness without attachment, you might be witnessing the universe creating and recreating your awareness moment by moment. The thoughts aren't arising from some unconscious depth. They're being created fresh in each moment, offerings from the universe's creative process. When meditation leads to experiences of expanded consciousness, unity with all things, or dissolution of the self, these might not be altered states but glimpses of the deeper reality, that consciousness isn't separate from the cosmos, but part of how it continuously creates itself. Near-death experiences, those profound states reported by people who come close to death, might be showing us what happens when the universe loosens its grip on creating a particular pattern of consciousness. The tunnel of light, the life review, the sense of peace and unity, the meetings with deceased loved ones. These might not be hallucinations of a dying brain, but experiences of consciousness as the universe decides whether to continue creating that particular pattern of awareness. The choice to return, reported by many who have these experiences, might be literally true. Consciousness participating in the decision of whether the universe continues to create that individual in physical form. Mental illness might sometimes represent instabilities in how the universe creates particular patterns of consciousness. Depression might not just be low neurotransmitter levels, but the universe creating consciousness with a particular emotional tone, a particular way of experiencing reality. Schizophrenia might involve the universe creating consciousness with looser constraints, allowing experiences that violate the usual rules of consistent reality. This isn't to romanticize mental illness or suggest it's not real suffering, but to reframe it as variations in the creative process rather than just mechanical breakdowns in the brain. The experience of time would be particularly interesting from the perspective of consciousness in continuous creation. You experience time passing, remember the past, anticipate the future, feel the present moment flowing from what was to what will be. But if each moment is a fresh creation, complete with its apparent past and potential future, then your experience of temporal flow is itself created moment by moment. The universe doesn't just create your present experience, but your entire sense of temporal existence, your feeling of duration, your perception of change, your anticipation of what's to come. Déjà vu, that strange feeling that you've experienced the present moment before, might be a glitch in continuous creation, the universe creating you with memories that include the present moment, making it feel familiar even though it's supposedly happening for the first time. Or perhaps it's a moment when you're especially sensitive to the continuous nature of creation, recognizing that every moment is both brand new and eternal, both the first time and a repetition of the pattern that defines existence. The phenomenon of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem too unlikely to be chance, might be consciousness influencing which universes get created. When you think of someone and they call, when you need something and it appears, when events align in ways that seem impossibly meaningful, your consciousness might be participating in selecting universes where these connections manifest. This isn't magical thinking, but recognition of consciousness as a fundamental feature of how reality creates itself, not separate from physical processes, but integral to them. Intuition, those moments of knowing without knowing how you know, might be consciousness accessing information about the possible universes available for creation. When you have a gut feeling about a person or situation, When you suddenly know the answer to a problem without working it out. When you sense what's about to happen before it does, you might be perceiving the probability flows of continuous creation, sensing which universes are most likely to manifest next. Intuition isn't supernatural but natural at the deepest level, consciousness participating in its own creation. The observer effect in quantum mechanics might be the clearest evidence of consciousness's role in continuous creation. When observation causes quantum systems to behave differently, it's not because consciousness is mysteriously collapsing wave functions, but because observation is how consciousness participates in selecting which universe manifests. The electron doesn't go through both slits until you look and then choose one. Rather, your observation selects whether you experience a universe where it went through one slit or both. Consciousness doesn't change reality. It participates in choosing which reality gets created. Your sense of agency, the feeling that you're the author of your actions, the source of your decisions, would be both illusory and real in continuous creation. It's illusory in that there's no persistent self moving through time making choices that change the future. But it's real in that your consciousness genuinely participates in selecting which universe manifests next, genuinely influences the continuous creative process. You're not a separate agent acting on reality, but part of reality's creative agency, not making things happen, but participating in their happening. Love, perhaps the most powerful of human experiences, might be consciousness recognizing itself in another, recognizing the same creative principle that generates your awareness operating in another person. When you love someone, you're not just appreciating their physical form or personality traits. You're recognizing the miracle of consciousness that they embody, the same miracle you embody. Love might be the universe's way of creating connections between conscious beings, ensuring that consciousness doesn't create itself in isolation but in relationship, in recognition, in the shared experience of being aware in a cosmos that creates itself anew each moment. Creativity, whether artistic, scientific or personal, might be consciousness most directly participating in continuous creation. When you create something new, a painting, a song, a solution to a problem, a new way of being in the world, you're not just rearranging existing matter or ideas, you're participating in the universe's creative process, helping to select universes where new forms, new patterns, new possibilities exist. The inspiration that artists and scientists describe, the sense of receiving ideas rather than generating them, might be literally accurate. Consciousness, receiving offerings from the ocean of possible universes and choosing which ones to manifest. Here we slow down even more, hovering at the soft edge of infinity, where human philosophies and spiritual traditions quietly meet cosmic questions, where ancient wisdom and modern physics converge in their wonder at existence, where the deepest questions about reality, consciousness and meaning find not answers, but deeper mysteries, more beautiful questions, more profound reasons for awe. We're not trying to prove anything or convince anyone of anything. We're simply noticing how many different ways humans have approached the mystery of existence, how many have intuited something like continuous creation, how many have sensed that reality is not a fixed stage but a dynamic performance, not a sculpture but a dance, not a fact but an ongoing act. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus said, "You cannot step in the same river twice, for it is not the same river and you are not the same person." He saw reality as flux, as continuous change, as fire that transforms everything it touches. Everything flows, he said, nothing stands still. What if he was more literally correct than he knew? What if you really can't step in the same river twice, not because the water has moved on, but because the river is recreated each moment, complete with new water that seems to have flowed from upstream, new patterns of current and eddy, new possibilities for wetness and reflection, and the sound of flowing water? Buddhism speaks of anicca, impermanence, the constant change that characterizes all existence. Nothing is permanent, nothing has inherent unchanging essence. Everything arises and passes away. The self is anatta, not self, a collection of changing processes rather than a fixed entity. Each moment, the Buddhist says, you are reborn, not the same person who existed a moment ago. This isn't meant metaphorically, but as a description of how reality actually works. What if this ancient insight is pointing to continuous creation, to a universe that doesn't contain permanent things but continuously creates the appearance of things, including the appearance of permanence. Hindu cosmology describes cycles of creation and destruction, kalpas and yugas, where Brahma dreams the universe into existence, Vishnu maintains it, and Shiva destroys it, only for the cycle to begin again. But some Hindu philosophers go deeper, suggesting that creation and destruction happen not in vast cycles, but continuously, that every moment is both an ending and a beginning, that the dance of Shiva is not a historical event but an eternal present, the constant creation and dissolution of forms in the field of consciousness. The universe doesn't exist and then get destroyed and then get created again. It's constantly in all three states simultaneously, existing, being destroyed, being created, in an eternal now that transcends our linear conception of time. The Kabbalistic tradition in Jewish mysticism speaks of Tzimtzum, the divine contraction that makes space for creation, and suggests that creation is not a one-time event but continuous, that the divine is constantly speaking the universe into existence, that if this creative speech ceased for even an instant, everything would return to nothingness. Every moment requires a new act of creation, a new divine utterance, a new let there be light. This isn't poetry but theology, not metaphor but metaphysics, the recognition that existence is not a given but a gift, constantly given, constantly renewed. Islamic philosophy includes the concept of occasionalism, particularly in the work of Al-Ghazali, suggesting that cause and effect are not necessary connections but habits of divine creation. When fire burns cotton, it's not that fire has the inherent power to burn, but that the divine creates the burning whenever fire and cotton meet. Every moment requires divine intervention, divine creation, divine maintenance of the patterns we call natural laws. What seems like causation is really correlation, patterns in how reality is created, rather than mechanical connections between events. Zen Buddhism, with its emphasis on the present moment, on direct experience rather than conceptual understanding, might be pointing to the immediacy of continuous creation. When a Zen master says, "When hungry, eat, when tired, sleep," they're not giving lifestyle advice but pointing to the freshness of each moment, the completeness of present experience, the way reality is always right here, right now, not coming from the past or going to the future, but simply being completely, perfectly, in this eternal instant. The sound of one hand clapping might be the sound of the universe creating itself, not through interaction between existing things, but through the emergence of existence itself. Process philosophy, developed by Alfred North Whitehead and others, suggests that reality consists not of substances but of occasions of experience, momentary events that arise, achieve satisfaction, and perish, giving rise to new occasions. Every electron, every atom, every molecule, every cell, every organism is not a thing but a series of experiences, each one creating the next through a process of prehension, of taking account of what came before while adding its own creative novelty. This isn't far from continuous creation, the universe consisting not of permanent particles but of momentary occasions, each one a fresh creation that includes the pattern of what came before. Quantum mechanics has forced physicists to grapple with questions that sound like ancient philosophy. Does the moon exist when no one is looking at it? Is the universe deterministic or probabilistic? Is consciousness necessary for physical reality? These aren't idle speculations, but questions arising from experimental results, from the actual behavior of matter and energy at the smallest scales. The Copenhagen interpretation, with its emphasis on observation and measurement, suggests that reality doesn't exist in a definite state until observed. This sounds like idealist philosophy, but it's based on hard experimental data, on results that have been confirmed thousands of times. The participatory anthropic principle, proposed by physicist John Wheeler, suggests that consciousness is necessary for physical reality, that the universe creates observers who then give the universe definite existence through their observations. It's a cosmic feedback loop, a self-creating system where matter gives rise to consciousness, which gives rise to matter. Wheeler imagined the universe as a self-excited circuit, bringing itself into existence through observation. This isn't mysticism, but a serious proposal by one of the most respected physicists of the 20th century, based on the strange implications of quantum mechanics. Panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality rather than an emergent property of complex matter, is experiencing a revival among philosophers and scientists trying to solve the hard problem of consciousness. If electrons have some form of primitive experience, if atoms have rudimentary awareness, if molecules have basic sentience, then human consciousness isn't a miraculous emergence from dead matter, but a complex organization of something that was there all along. In continuous creation, this makes perfect sense. Consciousness isn't added to matter but created with it, two aspects of the same creative process. The simulation hypothesis, the idea that our reality might be a simulation run by beings in a higher reality, is a modern version of ancient questions about the nature of existence. But even if we're in a simulation, the same questions arise at the next level. Is that reality also a simulation? It's simulations all the way down, or rather, creation all the way down, reality constantly generating itself, not through computer programs, but through something more fundamental, more creative, more like consciousness than computation. Eternalism in the philosophy of time suggests that all moments exist simultaneously in a four-dimensional block universe, that past, present, and future are all equally real, that time doesn't flow but simply is. This seems to contradict continuous creation, but perhaps both are true from different perspectives. From outside time, all moments exist eternally. From within time, each moment is freshly created. It's like a movie that exists complete on film but is experienced frame by frame when projected. The universe might be both eternal and continuously created, both static and dynamic, both being and becoming. The many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics suggests that all possible outcomes of quantum events actually occur in parallel universes. But instead of universes branching and multiplying exponentially, continuous creation suggests they rise and fall like waves, each one complete but temporary, each one exploring different possibilities before dissolving back into potential. We don't need infinite universes existing in parallel, we need only one universe recreating itself infinitely, exploring all possibilities sequentially in an eternal now. Emergence, the way complex properties arise from simple rules, might be showing us how continuous creation maintains consistency while allowing novelty. Each moment, the universe creates itself following certain patterns, certain habits, certain tendencies, but with room for variation, for creativity, for new properties to emerge. Consciousness emerges from matter not through accumulated complexity over time, but through the universe's choice to create certain patterns with conscious experience, to manifest awareness along with the neural correlates we observe. The anthropic principle, the observation that the universe seems fine-tuned for consciousness, makes perfect sense in continuous creation. The universe doesn't happen to have the right properties for consciousness. It creates itself with those properties because consciousness participates in the creative process. It's not that we're lucky to exist in a universe that allows our existence, it's that the universe creates itself in a way that includes us because we're part of how it creates itself. The fine-tuning isn't a coincidence or a design, but a necessity, consciousness and cosmos defining each other in the dance of continuous creation. Chaos theory shows us how deterministic systems can produce unpredictable results, how tiny changes in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes. In continuous creation, this sensitivity might be how the universe maintains both consistency and creativity. Each moment is created based on the pattern of the previous moment, maintaining enough consistency for stable existence, but with tiny variations that allow for novelty, for evolution, for the emergence of new forms and possibilities. The butterfly effect isn't just about weather systems, but about reality itself, each moment's creation influenced by infinitesimal variations in the moment before. The holographic principle in physics suggests that all the information in a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary, that the three-dimensional world might be a projection from a two-dimensional surface. This sounds like Plato's cave, shadows on the wall that prisoners mistake for reality. But in continuous creation, it might be telling us something about how the universe creates itself, not filling in all of space, but creating boundaries, interfaces, relationships, and letting the interior emerge from these specifications. The universe might create itself from the outside in, or from lower dimensions to higher, building reality from information rather than from substance. Non-duality, the mystical recognition that separation is illusion, that all is one, that observer and observed are not two different things but two aspects of the same thing, might be the deepest truth about continuous creation. The universe doesn't create separate things that then interact. It creates the appearance of separation within its fundamental unity. You're not separate from the cosmos, but a particular perspective within it, a specific way the universe experiences itself, a unique viewpoint in the continuous creative process. Your consciousness isn't trapped in your skull, but is the universe being conscious at the location you call yourself. As we hover here at the soft edge of infinity, where philosophy meets physics, where ancient wisdom meets modern science, where the deepest questions remain as mysterious as ever, we find not answers but better questions, not certainty but deeper wonder, not conclusion but continuation. Every tradition, every philosophy, every approach to understanding reality seems to glimpse some aspect of the mystery, to touch some part of the elephant, to see some facet of the jewel. None has the complete picture because the picture is not complete, but continuously creating itself, continuously revealing new depths, new dimensions, new reasons for awe. In this final chapter, we circle back to our first gentle question. What if the Big Bang happened every second? And what does it feel like to imagine that, here in the dark, as your thoughts begin to soften, as the boundaries between waking and sleeping start to blur, as you drift like a small boat on an infinite ocean, carried by currents you cannot see towards shores you cannot imagine? We've travelled far together, from the vastest scales of cosmic structure to the intimate mystery of your own consciousness, from ancient light that might not be ancient to futures that might already exist, from stars that burn without burning to thoughts that think themselves into being. Feel yourself now, wherever you are, however you're positioned, whatever surface supports you. Feel the weight of your body, the gentle insistence of gravity that seems to pull you toward the earth but might actually be the universe creating you in relationship with the earth, moment by moment, in patterns that we interpret as gravitational attraction. You're not being pulled by a force that reaches across empty space. You're being created in, each moment with a tendency toward the earth, a preference for downward, a gentle inclination that we call falling but might better call belonging. The darkness around you, or perhaps the gentle light if you're listening in a softly illuminated space, isn't empty but full of possibility, full of potential, full of universes that might be but aren't quite, not yet, not in this moment. The air you breathe isn't ancient atmosphere that has circulated for billions of years, but fresh creation, new molecules of nitrogen and oxygen and carbon dioxide that spring into existence with each breath, already in your lungs, already in your blood, already feeding the cells that create the experience of being you. Each breath is the first breath, the universe creating you anew as a breathing being, a living pattern that takes in and releases, receives and gives, participates in the constant exchange that we call life. Remember the vastness we've contemplated, the observable universe 93 billion light-years across, 2 trillion galaxies each with hundreds of billions of stars, countless planets orbiting in the darkness, endless possibilities for complexity, for chemistry, for consciousness. All of this vastness in continuous creation isn't spread across space that has existed for billions of years, but is created right now, complete, whole, perfect in its imperfection, ancient in its newness. The universe doesn't contain these wonders, it creates them, fresh in each moment, like an infinite artist who paints the same painting over and over, each time slightly different, each time exploring new possibilities within the same cosmic theme. Think of the cosmic microwave background, that gentle whisper of heat that fills all of space, 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, the same in every direction, the supposed echo of the Big Bang. As you lie there, this radiation passes through you, billions of photons every second, carrying what seems to be information from the early universe, but might be the universe's voice speaking itself into existence right now. You're bathed in creation, surrounded by it, penetrated by it, not separate from it, but part of it, a particular pattern in the universal field of creative energy. The stars above you, hidden perhaps by ceiling and roof and clouds, but they nonetheless aren't burning through ancient fuel, but are being created in their current state of brilliance. Betelgeuse, the red giant that might explode as a supernova any day now, or might have already exploded centuries ago with the light still travelling toward us, is created in each moment exactly as it is, exactly as it needs to be to maintain the consistency of astronomical observation. The galaxies racing away from us, carried by the expansion of space or perhaps created farther away in each successive moment, maintain their relationships, their structures, their histories not through the persistence of matter across time, but through the universe's perfect memory of how to create them. Your memories, those threads that seem to connect you to your past, that define who you are, that give meaning to your existence, shimmer with new significance in this view. That childhood moment you remember, perhaps a day at the beach, the feeling of sand between your toes, the sound of waves, the vastness of the ocean that seemed to go on forever. It wasn't encoded in your neurons decades ago, but is created fresh in this moment as part of who you are. The universe doesn't just create your brain, it creates your memories, your personality, your sense of self, complete and perfect and real, even though the events they seem to record never happened in the way we usually think of happening. But this doesn't make your memories less real or less meaningful. If anything, it makes them more significant. Every moment the universe chooses to create you with these particular memories, this particular history, this particular sense of who you are. Your memories aren't accidents of what happened to happen. They're deliberate choices in how the universe constructs your consciousness. You're not random accumulation but careful creation, not accident but art, not chance but choice, even if the chooser is the universe itself rather than some separate self-making decisions. The future that stretches before you, tomorrow and next year and all the years you hope to have, isn't predetermined but isn't entirely open either. The universe creates each moment with tendencies, with probabilities, with patterns that suggest certain futures are more likely than others. Your plans, your dreams, your fears about what's to come. These participate in selecting which futures manifest, which possibilities rise from the ocean of potential to become the next moment's reality. You're not powerless in the face of fate, but not all powerful either. You're a participant in the continuous creative process, influencing but not controlling, choosing but not determining, dancing with the universe in the choreography of existence. As your thoughts begin to soften, as the analytical part of your mind starts to release its grip, as you drift toward that borderland between waking and sleeping, you might feel yourself approaching the creative process more directly. The rigid structures of logical thought, the sharp boundaries between self and other, the clear distinction between real and imaginary, all of these begin to blur, to soften, to merge into something more fluid, more dreamlike, more like the ocean of possibility from which each moment's universe arises. Sleep, that mysterious third of our lives when consciousness seems to disappear or transform into something strange and symbolic, might be when we're closest to experiencing continuous creation directly. When you sleep, especially in those deep phases where dreams don't even occur, where you seem to cease to exist as an experiencing subject, the universe might be recreating you most fundamentally, rebuilding your pattern from the ground up, refreshing your existence for another day of conscious experience. You don't rest to recover from existing. You rest to be recreated, to be renewed, to emerge fresh from the ocean of possibility like a wave that disappeared back into the sea and rises again. Similar but not identical, continuous but not the same. Dreams, those strange narratives that seem so real while we're in them, might be the universe experimenting with different ways of creating you, different memories, different relationships, different laws of physics. In dreams, you might fly, might meet the dead, might be someone else entirely, might experience impossible things as perfectly normal. This isn't your brain malfunctioning, but the universe exploring possibilities, trying out variations, playing with the parameters of your existence in the safe space of sleep, where consistency requirements are relaxed, where the usual rules don't apply, where creation can be more freely creative. The transition you're experiencing now, this gentle drift from focused attention to diffuse awareness, from sharp consciousness to soft drowsiness, is itself a kind of continuous creation. Each moment you're created slightly less awake, slightly more relaxed, slightly closer to sleep. The universe doesn't maintain a wakeful you that gradually becomes tired. It creates you moment by moment in progressive states of tiredness. Each one complete, each one perfect for that moment, each one a full expression of your pattern at that instant of cosmic creation. Let your thoughts drift now to the question we began with, but hold it gently, like you might hold a butterfly, aware of its delicate beauty but not grasping too tightly. What if the Big Bang happened every second? What if right now, as you lie there breathing softly, the entire universe is being born? Not violently, not with impossible heat and pressure, but gently, quietly, like the way morning light slowly fills a room, like the way understanding dawns not all at once, but in soft stages of recognition, like the way sleep comes not as a sudden discontinuity, but as a gradual transformation, a slow dissolve from one state to another. You are part of this birth, this continuous creation, not as a separate observer watching from outside, but as an integral feature, a necessary component, a particular way the universe experiences itself. Your consciousness isn't trapped in your skull, but extends throughout the cosmos, participating in its creative process, influencing what manifests from the ocean of possibility. You're not small and insignificant in a vast, indifferent universe, but essential and integral to a cosmos that creates itself through and with and as consciousness, including yours, especially yours, uniquely yours. The questions we've explored together about time and space, matter and mind, existence and experience don't have final answers, because they're not questions about fixed things, but about processes, about becomings, about the continuous creative dance that generates reality moment by moment. We haven't been seeking truth in the sense of correct descriptions of what is, but truth in the sense of deeper participation in what's becoming, what's possible, what might be. The universe doesn't have properties we can catalogue and be done with. It has tendencies we can explore endlessly, patterns we can appreciate without ever fully grasping, mysteries that deepen rather than resolve the more we contemplate them. As you drift deeper towards sleep, letting these ideas blur and blend and transform into the stuff of dreams, remember that you're not leaving consciousness behind but transforming it, not losing awareness but allowing it to take new forms, explore new territories, discover new ways of being. Sleep isn't the absence of consciousness, but consciousness without the usual boundaries, without the sharp edges of waking thought, without the rigid structures we use to navigate daily life. In sleep, you return to something more fundamental, more fluid, more like the ocean of possibility from which each moment's reality emerges. The universe continues its creative process whether you're awake to witness it or not, but your consciousness, even in sleep, participates in what gets created. Your dreams influence tomorrow's reality. Your sleeping brain's patterns help select which universe manifests next. Your unconscious processes participate in the cosmic dance, even when your conscious mind has released its grip on the steering wheel. You never stop being part of continuous creation because you are continuous creation, a particular expression of it, a unique manifestation of the universe's endless creativity. Feel yourself now as both ancient and newborn, both eternal and momentary, both vast and intimate. You contain billions of years of cosmic history that never happened, but is created fresh in this moment as your past. You extend into infinite futures that don't yet exist, but influence this moment's creation through their possibility. You are the universe experiencing itself as you, creating itself as you, knowing itself as you, and this is happening right now, has just happened, is about to happen again. The Big Bang, that supposed beginning of everything, that explosion from nothing into something, that first moment when time and space and matter and energy sprang into existence, is happening right now. Can you feel it? That gentle pressure of existence emerging from possibility? That soft insistence of something rather than nothing? That quiet miracle of awareness aware of itself? It's not violent or dramatic or overwhelming. It's as gentle as your breath, as soft as your heartbeat, as quiet as the thoughts that are now dissolving into the approaching realm of dreams. You are present at the beginning of the universe. Not symbolically, not metaphorically, but literally, actually, really. This is the first moment, the only moment, the eternal moment of creation. Everything that seems to have come before is created now as history. Everything that seems to stretch ahead is created now as possibility. And you, exactly as you are, with all your memories and hopes and fears and loves, are created now fresh, new, perfect in your imperfection, complete in your incompleteness, whole in your partiality. as sleep finally takes you, as consciousness releases its grip on focused awareness and allows itself to dissolve into something larger, something deeper, something more fundamental. Remember that you're not disappearing but transforming, not ending but continuing in a new way, not falling unconscious but rising into a different kind of consciousness, one that's closer to the source, closer to the ocean, closer to the continuous creative principle that generates all existence. Tomorrow, when you wake, if you remember any of this at all, it might seem like a dream, these ideas about continuous creation, about the Big Bang happening every second, about consciousness and cosmos dancing together in eternal creativity. And perhaps that's appropriate, because dreams might be truer than waking life, might show us reality with fewer veils, might reveal the fluid, creative, endlessly beginning nature of existence that our waking minds solidify into the illusion of fixed, permanent, separate things. But whether you remember or not whether these ideas remain with you or dissolve like morning mist, something has changed. You've entertained a different way of thinking about existence. You've allowed yourself to wonder whether reality might be far stranger and more wonderful than our usual assumptions suggest. You've participated in the contemplation of mysteries that have no final answers, but reward us with ever deeper questions, ever greater wonder, ever more reasons for awe. The universe continues to create itself, moment by moment, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. You continue to be created, fresh and new in each instant, carrying what seems like history, but is really the universe's artistic choice about how to craft your consciousness in this moment. And somewhere in the cosmic dark, in the vast spaces between galaxies, in the quantum foam at the smallest scales, in the neurons of your sleeping brain, the Big Bang happens again and again and again, gently, quietly, eternally, creating you, creating me, creating everything, creating itself in an endless dance of possibility, becoming actuality, becoming possibility again. Sleep now, carried by the cosmic tide, drifting on the ocean of possibility, dissolving into the source from which you continuously emerge. You are safe here, held by the same creative principle that maintains the stars in their courses, that guides planets in their orbits, that orchestrates the impossible complexity of life. You are not separate from this principle, but an expression of it, not observing it, but being it, not created by it, but creating with it in the eternal collaboration between consciousness and cosmos. The Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago, and it's happening right now, and it will happen again in the next moment and the next and the next, forever and always, world without end, beginning without beginning, creation without cessation, and you're here for all of it, have always been here, will always be here, not because you persist through time, but because you are created in each moment as an essential feature of existence, a necessary note in the cosmic symphony, a unique and irreplaceable expression of the universe's endless creativity. Good night, fellow traveller, in this strange and wonderful cosmos. May your dreams be filled with the gentle explosions of countless universes being born. May your sleep be deep and refreshing, a return to the source from which you emerge renewed. May you wake tomorrow feeling the freshness of creation, the newness of each moment, the miracle of existence that we so often take for granted, but which is, in truth, the most astonishing thing of all. That there is something rather than nothing, that there is awareness to perceive it, that there is you, here, now, part of it all, essential to it all, created and creating in the eternal dance of existence. And so we end where we began, with a question that has no answer, but opens doors to endless wonder. What if the Big Bang happened every second? What if it's happening right now? What if you are both witness to and participant in the eternal beginning of everything? Let these questions carry you into sleep, into dreams, into the soft darkness where all possibilities converge, where the universe whispers its secrets to those who have released the need to understand and embrace the joy of simply being part of the mystery. The cosmic tide carries you now, gentle and inexorable, toward shores of sleep, toward oceans of dream, toward the quiet place where consciousness releases its grip on particularity and merges with the universal, where you stop being you and become part of everything, where the Big Bang isn't a memory or a concept, but the living reality of existence, continuously creating itself, including you, especially you, eternally you, in the forever now of cosmic becoming.